Okay, so we're going to start because our first candidate has arrived. So thank you for that, right? Let's give it up for Brian Landowitz. She will be coming in a few minutes. You know, I am. Okay, so as I mentioned again, my name is Jasmine Sanchez. I am the president of Three Bridges Democratic Club, and we are here this evening for a major forum. This forum is of the most importance because the person that we are going to elect come June will be representing this entire body and the entire New York City. So your questions matter. You being here to hear their platform matters. When you decide you're going to vote at those polls, that vote will matter. So thank you all for braving the weather to come here. It's a little chilly. And being here, for those of you joining us on Zoom, thank you so much as well. This forum is a collective act of 11 Democratic clubs on the Lower Manhattan. I always say the Lower East Side, but on Lower Manhattan, right? We have Three Bridges Democratic Club, Chelsea Reform Democratic Club, Coalition for a District Alternative, Downtown Independent Democrats, Grand Street Dems, Hell's Kitchen, Manhattan Young Dems. I see y'all. Yes, College Dems, the Democratic Organization, Village Independent Democrats, and the and the Village Reform Democratic Club. So give yourselves a round of applause for being here, representing your clubs, representing your communities, and holding these candidates accountable. Now, we are at the Educational Alliance. For those of you who don't know, EDGES, as I call it because I used to run the teen center downstairs, EDGES has been around since 1889. It is an institution that has provided educational opportunities, youth programming, for access to older adults to gain food, have a social and quality of life, but also has our boutique for newly arriving families, has an art program and a pottery school, that within this one building, right? And it services our community for free. And we love our settlement houses in Lower Manhattan. For the settlement houses. All right. So now with that, I'm going to pass the mic to my co-host, Sana, from College Dems.
Thank you, Jasmine. Hi, everyone. Welcome to tonight's forum. My name is Sahar Guerrero, and I'm proud to be the president of the NYU College Democrats, one of tonight's sponsors. So before we begin, I want to go over a few housekeeping rules to make sure that we have a smooth and productive event. We ask that everyone conduct themselves in a courteous and orderly manner. Personal attacks, offensive language, or anything that will disrupt the event will not be tolerated. Anyone who engages in such behavior will be asked to leave or removed from the Zoom. So here's how tonight's forum will work. Each candidate will have 5 minutes to make an opening statement, with 1 minute to close, and questions from the audience and the moderator in between. We'll alternate between in-person and Zoom questions, 2 from the room, then 2 from Zoom, and so on. Questions are limited to a strict 20 seconds, so please be concise and come prepared with your questions. State your name, club, question, no preamble. So to make sure we want to hear from as many people tonight, sponsored club members will have priority when asking questions. However, if no members have a question, we're going to open it up to the general audience. And for those on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature if you'd like to ask a question. You're going to be unmuted when called on, and make sure that you have your camera on, and again, state your name, club, and no preamble. And finally, thank you once again for your continuous involvement at the local level. Let's begin with the event tonight.
Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you, Saha. Excellent. So, just a reminder, not even that. If you have a question, you can begin to stand behind the mic over there on my left, right? Just as a reminder, you have 20 seconds to ask your question. There are a lot of people in this room. We want to get to as many people as possible, as Saha said. And so with that in mind, you have people get up and you're going to ask this wonderful question, and then you forget, and then you start talking about yourself. How many people have done that? Please raise your hand, because you know you did it. Okay, and how many people had the perfect question in mind, and they forgot what they had to ask? but they remembered it when they were at home. So that said, please consider writing your 20-second question down. And we are going to start now with the current controller running for the mayor of the city of New York, Brad Lander. So thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's rumble. You've got 5 minutes to. Oh, I have to give you the mic. You've got 5 minutes to tell your story, and then we're going to go to Q&A, and then you've got 30 seconds to close. All righty.
Good evening. Oh, come on. Good evening. It is great to be here with these amazing downtown Democratic clubs. Thanks to all the organizers. Thanks to everybody who is here at this moment when our democracy is on the line. There's nothing more important than local organizing to preserve and fight for it, and that's what you guys are doing. I'm proud to be here at Education Alliance at the Manny Cantor Center and to have stood with all of you time and again. I'm New York City Controller Brad Lander, and I'm here tonight to ask for your support for mayor. Friends, these are urgent times. Donald Trump and Elon Musk are pillaging the federal government, creating chaos, trampling on the values of this country and of this city. And now they essentially have an agent at City Hall. After the Justice Department memo yesterday, the mayor has made it clear he's standing up just for himself. He's not going to fight for New York's families. He's not going to fight for our budget. He's not going to protect this city. But long before he sold us out, he already was failing to deliver on what matters to working New Yorkers, was failing to deliver on affordable housing, on childcare, on public safety. And I think it's a big reason why so many New Yorkers actually voted for Donald Trump in this election. People are fed up with government that doesn't work for them, on cost of living, on safety, on quality of life, on the issues that matter in their lives. People are fed up with Democratic mayors in blue cities who aren't fighting for and delivering for them. But it doesn't have to be that way. We can have a mayor who fights for our values, and we can have a mayor who governs effectively so we can live up to our values as well. And when I'm mayor, that's what we'll have. New Yorkers are desperate for a safer, a more affordable, a more livable, and a better run city. And what that's going to take is honest, effective, proven leadership at City Hall. And that's what I bring. To make the city safer, I made the first commitment of my mayoral campaign to end street homelessness for people with serious mental illness, a challenge in our streets and subways and neighborhoods, but one we can actually rise to and end. I put out a detailed 75-page ready on day one plan for how we can stop people from cycling from subway to street to hospital to jail and back again. It puts housing and services at the center, a better coordinated continuum of care, and real mayoral leadership. We can actually end street homelessness for people with serious mental illness and make the city safer and more humane. Making the city more affordable means confronting the key drivers of the insane cost of living, and that's housing and childcare. Everybody's talking about affordable housing. I've spent my whole career working on it. Long before I was in elected office, I ran 2 neighborhood nonprofits that do tenants' rights, and we preserved and created thousands of units of affordable housing in Brooklyn and throughout the city. As council member, I led the Gowanus rezoning, the biggest affordable housing rezoning in the last decade in the city. 8,000 new units, 3,000 of them genuinely affordable to low-income families, but it was also one of the only rezonings that had the overwhelming support of its community board, because we did it through a community planning approach. And when people said, we need to make sure the public housing nearby gets a comprehensive modernization and stays Section 9, that's what we fought for and delivered. When people said, expand the historic districts and landmarks and buildings. When people said, we need some affordable artist studios. There's 100 artist studios renting for for $300 a month amidst all that affordable housing. That's what a community planning approach looks like. As controller, I've invested in the preservation and creation of more affordable housing than all previous controllers combined, including saving the 35,000 units of rent-stabilized housing at risk when Signature Bank failed. And that's the kind of housing leadership I'll bring to City Hall. I got plans to make the city more livable, but the key is better run. And I've got a proven track record of standing
Fred.
up to the mayor time and time again.
Sign in if you don't mind, and then go to
Medicare
the sixth
Advantage
floor.
contract when it came. Audits and pension fund management have saved the city $2.5 billion. But finally, to get that, we've got to go through two corrupt chaos agents. Eric Adams is unqualified to lead this city, but let's be clear, Andrew Cuomo is unacceptable to lead this city as well. You need the candidate that can stand up and beat both of them. I've got the broadest political coalition. I'm leading on fundraising. If you want the alternative to Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams, I'm your guy, and I'd welcome your support. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we have our first questioner. How many people remember how many seconds you have to ask your question? Very excellent. So thank you very much. Can you please state your name and the club that you belong to?
Are the key reasons that separate you from the other candidate and make you the best candidate? By the way, I voted for Eric Adams. I apologize. Thank you.
I mean, he promised to get stuff done, and I guess there's some stuff he got done, but not the things that matter. Look, I think I bring the three things that people are hungry for across the city. A proven track record of actually making government work, leading an executive office, managing a $280 billion pension fund, making city government work well. I've got a decades-long record of public integrity and this set of bold but practical ideas that deliver on affordability and safety and quality of life. The other thing is, as I said in my opening, I'm the best candidate to beat Adams and Cuomo. I'm leading in the fundraising race. I've got this broad coalition that stretches from Liz Kruger on the Upper East Side to Jumaane Williams and Antonio Reynoso in Brooklyn. You know, if what we want is a broad majority coalition that can affect, and I should say, you don't have to take my word for this. Andrew Cuomo actually reportedly said today in the press that he thinks I'm the one with the best chance to beat him. So if that's what you want, here I am.
Hi, Alan Shulkin from the Downtown Independent Democrats. I live in Independence Plaza, and my landlord is intent on building a 90-story building in the middle of our complex. Now, everybody is for affordable housing and they want more housing, but a 90-story building doesn't make it in the middle of a complex, and it's going to be luxury housing. One second, that was my question. Are you going to help us?
I mean, Independence Plaza is a gem of affordable housing for generations in New York City. So I'll be very glad to meet and talk with you guys about how to make sure we preserve your, preserve the affordable gem it is.
Well, Richard, not just Richard Corman's leading the charge. So he's leading the group.
That's a good sign because I love Richard. We work very well together. Let's follow up. And I'm, in a political way.
Good to hear.
Thank you for your question.
Yeah, we're going now to questions online. So Mike Schweinsberg from 504 DIMS is going to ask a question, and in 20 seconds, Michael. Thank you.
You know me. And it's, hi, Brad, and it's not just 504, it's CODA too, I'm proud to be part of. Brad, first of all, you didn't give yourself enough credit for all the supportive housing you created when you were with Fifth Avenue. Thank you for that. But now, without saying transportation, everybody says transportation, subways. Please tell me what you are going to prioritize to help people with disabilities in your new administration.
Let me start with the track record that I'm proud of. I hired, actually with Mike and 504's help, the first disability justice liaison ever in the controller's office. There was not one previously, Nick Astor, and he convened a disability justice roundtable, as a result of which we're auditing express bus service. We were co-hosts of the Disability Pride Parade this year, and we're auditing employment programs as well. And if I'm not going to talk about transportation, I guess employment, housing, and accessibility of the streets is where I'll go. That we had summer interns from a disability employment program, and they were fantastic. But we could help thousands of people get good jobs, both inside and outside of city government. We did an economic spotlight on the contributions people with disabilities make when they get chances at jobs, and it's an extraordinary possibility, and that's one of the things. Thanks, Michael.
We're now going to hear from Victoria Fiorello on Zoom.
Hi there. I'm with the Downtown Independent Democrats. So New York City is the only place in our state that practices 24-hour workday for home care attendants. There's a bill in City Hall that would end this practice. To be clear, it is not a state issue. It is a human rights issue. Will you champion this bill?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will be going on to a question from the audience here. Who's next? State your name. Hey, how you doing?
I'm Ken, Three Bridges. I'm Ken, Three Bridges.
Hi, Ken.
I just have a quick question. I appreciate all the help you've been giving for the low-income housing and all that. I'm speaking for me personally. We're having a rat pack problem. I'd like to know where your stance is with the whole privatization of NYCHA and all that.
So I think what's critical is that NYCHA residents have a genuine opportunity to vote on the future path that they want, whether that's staying in Section 9 and fighting hard to get a comprehensive modernization Act. Right now, you have to vote to get in the trust, but no vote is required for NYCHA to put you in RAD Pact. And what I believe is that residents, a real vote should be required. Where they've done it for the trust, 60–70% of residents have come out and voted on their future. But people also need real clear information. That's why we did an audit of eviction rates in RAD Pact development in order to make sure residents really have all the information they need. So when I'm mayor, that choice will be in the hands of the residents of each development.
To the next person in the room.
Have to bring it down a little bit. Hi, Mindy from VID. And my question is, do you support the continuation of mayoral control over New York City public schools? If so, how would you approve accountability and transparency? And if not, what alternative governance structure do you propose?
So what I support is something I call municipal control. I mean, I don't want it to be in Albany, but that means the mayor should appoint the chancellor, but with the advice and consent of city council and with meaningful council oversight. And of course, with consultation with communities in all kinds of ways. But, the city council pushed to get advice and consent over key appointments. And I've made clear, I'm going to appoint first-rate schools chancellor, police commissioner, budget director, and bring them to the council so people can see who I appointed. They can watch those people get questions, and there can be some real accountability. And that's what I'll bring to the school system as a whole, is a form of municipal control, clear mayoral leadership, but a much better opportunity to bring community voices, parents, and the city council in.
Thank you. We're going to take two questions from Zoom. The first is from Mariam Fisher. I'm sorry, say that again. No, it's Mariam Fisher. It's on you.
I'm Miriam Fisher from Chelsea Reform Democratic Club, also from Elevator Action Group. I will ask about transportation. What more can you help us with making the subways accessible? Elevators break down. What about better bus stops? Nobody's talking about that. We need seats and shelter from extreme weather. That's not on the menu, not on the agenda. What more can we do?
Thank you, Miriam. This is a great question. A more livable city means one where the buses run on time, where the subways work, where there's less traffic and cleaner air. That is why I was proud to help lead the fight for congestion pricing, because and it's working already to reduce traffic, but now what it has to do is deliver for our subways and buses. So that means elevators like the one I fought with many of you for to win, actually, on the 7th Avenue F stop in Brooklyn. We've got to get all of our subways accessible, and the congestion pricing money is a big part of that. So I want to, as mayor, make sure we are showing where every one of those dollars goes. That's platform barriers, that's station gates, that's new signal systems, but that, you're damn sure right, is more elevators that work in our subway system. On bus stops, we have an opportunity to renegotiate with J.C. Ducot. That's the franchisee that is obligated to build more bus stops. They get the advertising rights, and they're supposed to put them anywhere they can physically go. And as I'm mayor, when I'm mayor, I promise you I'll make sure they do, Marion. Thank you.
What are you with?
Our next question is going to be from Mariama James from down.
Hi, can you hear me? Because I lost Io's.
We
I can't
can
hear.
hear.
Okay. My colleague and I asked you to your face, SOMOS 2023, about keeping Battery Park City funds in Lower Manhattan for the first time so that they could be applied toward 100% affordability at 5 World Trade Center, and you declined. You said you'd rather send that money to the outer boroughs. What that does is that relegates people of color, particularly, and other working class people, to the outer boroughs. What are you going to do to create real affordable housing, including in Manhattan, for working class people, people of color, with realistic rents?
Thank you, Mariama.
So, Mariama, what I remember telling you, it's almost as that I would look at it, and I'm proud to tell you that we did, in fact, vote to put substantial money from the Battery Park City funds into 5 World Trade Center to make it more affordable. I wanted to make sure some of that money went to actually fix problems at the city's Department of Housing Preservation and Development, where they've got old technology and are short-staffed, and as a result, where it used to take 2 months to get someone into an affordable housing unit that was created, it now takes 8 months. So I did think it was important to invest a big chunk of that money in improving the city's housing department so it could deliver on affordable housing. But I agree with you, that money's generated in Lower Manhattan, and a good chunk of it should create and preserve affordable housing in Lower Manhattan.
Thank you. I want to remind people, please write your questions down. Please stick to 20 seconds. And we are now going to take, where are we at in terms of time, please? Okay, we'll take the next question from the floor.
Hi, Tom, DID. My one issue today is NYPD and the dozens of officers who attempt suicide. For military veterans like me, this spells systemic failure. No one's talking about officers being unfit physically or mentally. And I believe oversight's getting harder as we speak. So my ask for you is commit both in a campaign and admin to never cite crime statistics without also reporting police conduct statistics, because this conversation has to start somewhere. So you can make the commitment, you can make it now.
I'll make that commitment. I mean, I think New Yorkers want accountability, and they want accountability when people have committed crimes, and they want accountability if NYPD officers use excessive force, and they want accountability if elected officials spend billions of dollars on programs that don't work. And balancing that kind of shared accountability, where you take it as an elected official, you expect it from people who work for this.
Yeah, and it's only gonna be one thing. Okay, all right. Oh, shoot. Oh.
I'll be muted as well.
People will just mute themselves. What next question? I'm sorry.
Done.
Go ahead, please.
No, I mean, I said yes, and I tried to talk about the model of accountability in all directions, including of the mayor and elected officials, that I think it's critical that New Yorkers are hungry for.
Okay. Next question, please.
Hello, Brad. My name is Julian Segura, Manhattan Young Democrats. An implication I am a descendant of Armenian genocide survivors. I ask, if you were elected mayor, would you publicly recognize the Armenian genocide? This question of you.
Yes, to recognizing, and obviously have to work on the calendar on the date, but be most welcome for the invitation.
I appreciate that. I mean, the scheduler didn't even answer me. You can
Thank
say
you.
no, you're the man.
Thank you very much for your question.
I'll just
Appreciate it,
extend
Brad.
and say, look, as a proud Jewish New Yorker, this is a time when the whole city needs to stand up to hate, and that includes anti-Semitism, and it includes Islamophobia, and it includes a recognition of the broader challenges that we're facing. This is the greatest immigrant city the world has ever known, and the mayor needs to be willing to stand up for our immigrant communities. That's a part of why it's so dangerous what he has done, selling out our city to Trump. When I am mayor, I will recognize, the Armenian genocide, but also the rich tapestry of this city. And when ICE tries to come into our public schools or to our shelters or to our public hospitals, I'll enforce our sanctuary laws and make sure we stand up for all those immigrants and all those communities.
We're going to take one more question from Zoom, and that is going to be Jacqueline. It might be Lecrae, and if I am killing, Lara. Okay, there's a lot of extra letters after, but the floor is yours. Thank you.
Hi. My name is Jacqueline Lara. I'm from Fulton, Elliott, Chelsea. We have enough affordable housing. What we need is low income housing for our working families. My question is to you. Can you help us stop this demolition of buildings that they're saying that are deplorable? I feel we are being sold out and they want to demolish these buildings and we're all going to lose our homes. Can you stop this demolition?
As I said before, it seems to me what's most critical is that residents of public housing make the decisions about the future of their development. That's why I convened the first ever NYCHA Resident Audit Committee. I see Aixa Torres on the Zoom. She's one of the members of it. So she and others can vouch for my commitment to put NYCHA resident leadership forward. I've done that in my decision so far, and I'll do it as mayor. I'm glad to meet and talk in your development, and I commit to do it across the city.
And you've got 30 seconds to close.
Whew. These are rough times, but we could have a city that is doing so much better. If you imagine what it'll be to not have mentally ill homeless folks sleeping on the street, for NYCHA residents to know their mayor is looking out for them, for a vision of affordability and safety that's grounded in community. If that's a mayor that is not either Eric Adams or Andrew Cuomo, I am the alternative to Adams and Cuomo. I've got the best chance to beat them and to deliver that safer, more affordable, more livable, and better run New York City that all of you and all New Yorkers deserve. Thank you so much. Appreciate your support.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to all the clubs. This was a great event.
Thank you so much for being here. No, you can leave it. You can leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
All right, everyone. Our next candidate is going to be on Zoom. And that is Zoran Memdani, who is currently a member of the New York State Assembly. Let's see. Yeah, let's see if we can get him on and spotlight him.
Hello, everyone. I've been unmuted.
Okay, thank you so much for waiting patiently. So the rules are the same. You're going to have a 20-minute slot. You're going to have 5 minutes to tell your story, your vision. You're going to have 15 minutes of Q&A and 30 seconds to close. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to be here with all of you. My apologies that I can't be there in person. I'm coming to you live right now from Albany, where we are wrapping up this week's legislative session. I come to you just less than 24 hours since we've heard that Eric Adams' attempt to give up our city in the hopes of securing yet another personal favor has been successful. And we see that this is a mayor who, when asked the question of who he is willing to sacrifice, the answer has seemingly been everyone, whether it's trans New Yorkers or immigrant New Yorkers, extending even to telling city officials that they should refuse to criticize the Trump administration and should not enforce the sanctuary city laws that so many of us are so proud to call as part of being a New Yorker. And we know that in this moment, standing up to Trump means replacing this kind of a mayor, but it also means showing New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs that the crisis of corruption that is engulfing City Hall is part of a larger crisis that many New Yorkers haven't even been able to get a moment's breath from. And what that one is a crisis of affordability. Because for many New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs, if they cannot afford to pay their rent, if they cannot afford to pay their childcare, if they cannot afford to pay their groceries, then they cannot afford to even worry about what's happening at City Hall. And we face an opportunity in this moment right now to chart a different course for our city. One where working class New Yorkers can actually afford to live in the city that they built. And when we launched this campaign 4 months ago, we did so by centering that very crisis at the heart of this campaign, saying that we would address it in direct and bold manners, such as freezing the rent for more than 2 million New Yorkers who live in rent-stabilized housing, by delivering universal childcare to each and every New Yorker, no matter if their child is 6 weeks or 5 years of age, and by making the slowest buses in the nation a model for this country by making them fast and free. And as we have shown over the last many months, that this is a campaign that is dedicated to having a relentless focus on an economic agenda. And we have built upon those proposals with additional ones to build 200,000 affordable homes across New York City, speaking to the New Yorkers who in this moment cannot afford the housing that they're living in or cannot find housing that they could afford to live in. For New Yorkers who are earning $72,000 for a family of 4, or New Yorkers who live in a shelter who've been approved for a voucher, but haven't actually been able to find a landlord to accept it. Or the New Yorkers who sleep on our subway platforms and have seen no interest from a city administration in actually housing them, as well as putting forward a proposal for a city-run pilot program to open city-run grocery stores, 1 in each borough, that would guarantee lower prices to New Yorkers for the staples of day-to-day life, be it bread, be it milk, be it eggs, so that we can showcase that it is actually possible to continue calling this city home. I'm proud that after 3.5 to 4 months in this race, we have raised more than $640,000 for more than 6,500 people, showing that while we have been heartened to surprise people at almost every turn of this campaign, our aim is not simply to make a splash, it is to win this race. And we will do so because of the fact that more New Yorkers contributed to this campaign than every other campaign combined. And we've been described as by the New York Times as the campaign with the most momentum in this race. And we seek to build upon that and deliver this vision for a more affordable city through the partnership of each and every person that's in this room today, as well as each and every one of the clubs that has been doing this kind of critical work for so many years in Lower Manhattan. So I really appreciate the time and I look forward to answering each and every question that you may have.
Thank you so much. We are going to go to the first question for you from the floor. Cheryl Freeman from CODA, Coalition for a District Alternative.
Democratic Club CODA. My question to you is, if you become mayor, would you build a form a coalition for Section 8 tenants so our voices can be heard right along with NYCHA tenants?
I'm sorry, I was just cracking out a little bit. Did you say if I would build a coalition with Section 8 tenants?
If you become mayor, would you build a coalition with Section 8 tenants so our voices could be heard too?
Absolutely. And you know, when I talk about the housing crisis and I talk about the need to build 200,000 new affordable homes that are union built, that are rent stabilized, that is also speaking to a crisis we saw last year when we opened up the wait list for Section 8 and saw that more than 600,000 New Yorkers applied in 7 days. And what they found, the ones that were considered to be successful, were that they could join into a wait list where they were going to be admitted at a snail's pace, maybe 250 of them each month. It's unacceptable for us to leave New Yorkers high and dry in this moment.
10 minutes.
And oh, I'm sorry.
Don't pour your water. Okay.
Yeah, somebody's got to mute. Not sure who that is. That said, we're going to our second question now. So your name and your club, please.
William House Kitchen Democrat. Zoran, This applies to all candidates, including you. Can you fix it so that the New York City libraries can get 5 browsers attached to the computers? Opera, Wave, Mozilla Firefox, Google Chrome, and Microsoft Edge, particularly Opera, my favorite browser. It's long overdue.
That seems eminently doable, and I really appreciate your spotlighting of it. I will absolutely be working on to make sure that every one of those computers can accommodate all of those browsers.
Thank you.
We're going to move to Zoom, and the next questioner is Pete Davies from DID.
Hi, yes, Pete Davies, DID. My question is about funding, both for sanctuary cities and for the 200,000 units of affordable housing. Where's the money coming from and what is the cost of each of those items? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question, Pete. So I'll focus first on the proposal to build out the 200,000 new affordable homes. This is a proposal that would triple the amount of housing the city is currently set to build. The city has a $30 billion budget in capital over the next 10 years. What we are proposing is to increase that to 100 billion so we can actually start to respond to the scale of the crisis. Now, the way that we would pay for this is threefold. The first is usually when building affordable housing, one of the most prohibitive costs is the purchasing or procurement of land. The city actually has a head start on many developers in that it owns quite a number of pieces of property that are not currently being utilized. So that creates a head start in the ability to actually deliver that. The second is we would use municipal bonding. And what I mean by that is when you have a 10-year capital plan, you're not actually required to pay at the outset for the entirety of it. What we have seen, for example, with the MTA's extremely necessary capital plan, they are short about $35 billion. Now, for Albany to meet that gap, it doesn't need to provide $35 billion off the top. What it needs to provide is about $1.6 to $1.7 billion each year that can be bonded out. So that is the similar approach that we would take with this capital investment, is the need for municipal bonding. The last thing that I would highlight as a means of which to pay is that the city has a number of vouchers it has already approved and allocated to New Yorkers, but it cannot find any landlord to take it. You can build affordable housing by pooling those vouchers as a means of guaranteed income towards those buildings. I see it's time.
Yeah, we're going to go on to the next person who has a question in line here.
Hi, sir. Thank you. Alice Blank from DID. Just pull up the question. With the Rikers Island closure plan costing taxpayers $15.7 billion to build 4 new borough-based jails, how specifically would the Manhattan Detention Center address Rikers' current problems, and what modifications might you make to these plans, if any, as mayor?
Thank you very much for the question. You know, I think what we've seen from this mayoral administration is one that campaigned on the promise that New Yorkers need not choose between safety or justice. And yet it has shown itself deeply uninterested at best in delivering either of those things. And if we even understand this question purely from a fiscal perspective, it costs about $42,000 to provide someone transitional housing on an annual basis. And yet it costs the city about $550,000 to lock someone up on Rikers. It's not just cruel, it's poor governance. And what I would do as the mayor is I would comply with the law and close Rikers as is scheduled to do so. And what I would also do is to decarcerate our jail population, because the current plan that we have is not even sufficient to admit the number of individuals who are currently incarcerated across New York City jails.
We're going to ask you to try to answer your questions a little bit quicker because we have a line of about a dozen people who are really hoping to ask you a question. Next person, please. Oh, I'm sorry. The next person is going to be on Zoom, and that's Aisa Torres. There's not a person in the room who does not know who she is. Aisa.
Oh,
Yep, you.
good evening. My name is Aisa Torres. I live in Alfred E. Smith houses. I have been living in public housing. So without preamble, what is your position on the Preservation Trust?
You know, I am someone who was initially skeptical around the Preservation Trust, and that's why I voted in opposition to the trust, because I wanted to see more foregrounding of residential participation. And I was concerned around the thresholds that had been put forward, as well as the stipulations of when a vote would be binding. Ultimately, what I believe when it comes to public housing is, one, we need to end the era of incredible disinvestment in public housing, and two, we need to make sure that residents are at the forefront of deciding how they want to move forward with regards to each and every development. I think that having a one-size-fits-all approach is not one that's going to work across NYCHA developments, and I say that as someone who represents the largest public housing development in North America in Queensbridge houses. Furthermore, right now we have, actually, you know what, I've been told, do I have 10 more seconds?
No,
10 seconds.
actually you don't.
That's-
Let's move on to the next person who is in the room to ask the question. And we really apologize for all of the feedback that's coming from Zoom or maybe from this mic. But if we mute everybody on Zoom, it's going to mute the candidate as well. So your patience. Thank you. Next person asking a question.
Hi, Rosa Chang, DID. Parks are our backyards, living rooms, and recreation spaces and places where we build community. Will you prioritize funding for public parks and open spaces, both for maintenance as well as opening new spaces in communities without? Will you commit to 1% for parks?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Very welcome.
Person who wants to ask a question, step up. Thank you.
Hi. Last week in your interview with Harry Siegel, you spoke about the luck you had in renting a rent-stabilized apartment in Queens after you had left one of your family's properties in Manhattan. Do you feel that it is still means testing to expect people of means not to take up scarce resources that are meant for people of less means?
Hi. Just to
And are you still in
put
the
a-
apartment?
Currently, I'm actually in a hotel room in Albany, but yes, I do live in my rent stabilized apartment in Astoria. I don't plan on living there in perpetuity. When I found that apartment, I was on a salary of $47,000 a year, working as a foreclosure prevention housing counselor at Chaya CDC, and I was looking for an apartment that I could afford. My family lives in an apartment that on the Upper West Side, as part of my father being a university professor at Columbia, and I needed to have my own place, and this was what I could afford. But I do believe that if we take a means-tested approach to any program, what it also does is it actually disincentivizes working-class New Yorkers from participating in it, which we've found when we look at the approach in contrasting results between fair fares and a universal approach to making buses free.
10 seconds.
Where are we at in terms of time? Okay, more questions. We have none on Zoom. I'm sorry, we do. Victoria Fiorello on Zoom.
Hi, it's Victoria Fariello. I'm with the Downtown Independent Democrats. I wanted to say thank you for coming out to support the home attendant workers who are looking to end the 24-hour workday here in New York City. There's a bill in the city that would do that. I'd like to know if you will champion that and how you will champion that bill.
It's absolutely something that I support, and I think that there is room for far more advocacy on that issue. I also think that fundamentally what it requires is the movement of Albany to ensure that we have the funding to actually put an end to the 24-hour workday, both through a moral means and the fiscal means. And I think the city has to stand up, but we also will continue to require the partnership of Albany, and I will look forward to actually doing so, because what we have right now is a system where we tell ourselves people are working 13 hours, but we know that people are actually working 24 hours a day. And it is work that has broken the backs of so many immigrant New Yorkers, disproportionately immigrant women. And it's socially invisible work that we have to recognize for what it is and actually compensate individuals for what they've done.
Thank you. Next question is going to be from Zoom, and it is Larab Hadir.
Hi, thank you. I want to know, what are your day one priorities? Because I feel like as the candidates have spoken, everyone wants to do a lot, but at the end of the day, the bureaucracy takes over and we never see anything get done. So I want to know, starting from day one, what are you going to get done and what should we expect at the end of your 24 hours? Because we've seen a lot can get done when the government actually gets to it. Thank you.
I really appreciate the question. So my campaign at its core is about three policy issues: freezing the rent, making buses fast and free, and delivering universal childcare. The first one is one we can take action on within the first 24 hours. The rent for rent stabilized apartments is set by the Rent Guidelines Board, which is composed of 9 members, all chosen by the mayor. 8 of those members' terms are up, meaning they could be replaced tomorrow. In the first 24 hours as mayor, I will go about replacing those members of the Rent Guidelines Board and appointing members who actually are going to vote in recognition of reality. Reality meaning that landlords' expenses are at double the amount of their actual expenses. And so what we can see is relief is needed for tenants. Landlords actually have quite a bit of space and they're doing just fine.
Thank you. Next person in line.
Patricia Larry of VID. Do you support the continuance of mayoral control over New York City public schools? If so, how would you improve accountability and transparency? If not, what alternative governance structure do you propose?
Thank you so much for this question. I've been critical of mayoral control while serving as a state assembly member. And I've been critical because of the fact that it has suppressed many of the voices of students, of parents, of teachers. And I believe that in politics, we must be consistent. And so as the next mayor, I know that there would be a limited period of time where we would still have mayoral control. But when it came up to have that renewed, I would be working from day one with partners across our education system to create a system that is far more participatory, far more democratic, and one that amplifies the voices of parents, of students, and of teachers.
Thank you.
We're going to have to lower the mic for our next questioner. We want to know, first of all, what is your name?
Hazley.
Hazley. Everybody, round of applause, please. Hazley, how old are you?
6.
Amazing. And what is your question for the prospective next mayor of the city of New York? And let me move out of your way.
Can I get free after school?
Thank you so much for your question, Hazley. Yes, that is something that is absolutely part of our campaign, is that we support free after school, and we're excited to make it a reality and think through new ways that city government can actually take care of children across our public school system, because what we have right now is far from acceptable. We have a system where 1 in 8 public school students are homeless. We have a system where we are seeing the most segregated school system in America continue to be such, and far too little interest from New York City administration in actually taking on that crisis for what it is.
Give it up for Hazley. Thank you, Hazley. Okay, next questioner, please. Do we have someone on Zoom? Okay, we're taking a question from the audience. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mina Fairmand, and I'm with NYU College Democrats. And what I want to know is, what are your goals for the New York City budget and the specific actionable steps that you plan on taking? And number 2, how you'd want to reallocate any parts of the budget from one agency to another.
Thank you so much for your question. My goal is to treat the budget for what it is, which is a moral document. It is something that should reflect our actual values. And what we've seen under an Adams administration is a budget that has sought to cut some of the most critical public services, whether they be our libraries or our sanitation, or our schools or our childcare. And I believe that we need to treat every agency as the same, when in fact what we've seen under Mayor Eric Adams is an attempt to separate out the NYPD and the Department of Corrections as being worthy of a completely different lens, when in fact what New Yorkers want is a consistent approach of a budget that is often more than $114 billion, and to actually fund the same values that we say that we hold.
Perfect. We're not going to take any more questions at this time, and we're asking you to do your 30-second closing. Thank you.
I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak to each and every one of you, and I am very excited about the prospect of getting through the next 4 months alongside many of the clubs that are here this evening. I'm so excited about how our campaign for a more affordable New York City has been building across the 5 boroughs, and I truly believe that what New Yorkers are hungry for in this moment is change. They don't want a disgraced executive like the one they have now. They don't want a disgraced executive like the one we had in Andrew Cuomo. They want a politics that speaks directly to them. And our politics of this campaign and the policy proposals of it require no translation and speak directly to the fact that it is hard to be concerned about anything else when you can't afford to pay your rent, your childcare, your
Time.
groceries, or your Metro card. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I think that our next candidate is coming in, but I did make a huge blunder. I never introduced myself. My name is Io Harrington, and along with Alana Sivens, who is somewhere around, we are co-presidents of Coalition for District Alternative, or CODA. And coming to the mic, Michael Blake. He served in the Obama administration. He is a pastor among many other things. You have 5 minutes to tell your story, to talk about your vision. Then we're going to transfer into Q&A for 15 minutes. And then you're going to have 30 seconds to close out. So here we go. You've got the floor.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. To Io, Jasmine, and everyone, thank you for the opportunity to be with you all today. My name is Michael Blake. I'm grateful to be with you, and I'm excited to be with you. I'm asking for your vote. Fundamentally, we are paying too much, we're not getting enough back. Fundamentally, we have to change what's happening in our city, and we deserve better. I had the opportunity to serve as an assembly member for 6 years in the South Bronx. We created the My Brother's Keeper program so we can actually have better opportunities when it came to schools. We were the co-lead on Raise the Age because 16 and 17-year-olds were being tried as adults and it was unfair and wrong to them. We led the effort around diversity in medicine so we can actually focus on what happened with affordable health care. Please use a flash. I'm a dark brother. Make sure you can see me right now. I appreciate that right there, right? We took those steps after I had a chance for working for 6.5 years for President Barack Obama. I led African-American outreach in the White House and minority business outreach. I took that work here back to New York State where we led the bill so that we can actually make sure that businesses were paid faster in New York State. And now we've continued to work. I'm leading the work on the National Democracy Project, also focus on what we're doing to make sure communities have better opportunities. Why are we running? 2 buckets. First, the true cost of living. I do believe we can transform what's happening here across our city. First and foremost, I do believe we should have universal child care. If we had universal child care, it would transform what's happening in many of our families. I do believe we should have guaranteed income, because if you have guaranteed income, you actually will raise wages to keep more money in people's pockets. I do believe we should eliminate credit scores being utilized, because it's the main reason why people are struggling when it comes to rent and home ownership. I do believe we could transform what's happening with our schools and that every child should have civics, financial literacy, and mental health before they graduate. We do believe that we could transform on affordable housing. I was the chair of the Mitchell-Lama subcommittee, and we should have a Mitchell-Lama 2.0, which focuses fundamentally on having middle-class housing, because right now you effectively have to be too rich or poor enough to have a home. Unfair and it is wrong. We do believe that you can have public services that work for us. So you can have public safety so that we actually make sure that people are safe while also addressing the mental health crisis that's happening in our city with mental health professionals actually supporting people in our communities while also making sure that we have public housing and public schools and public health all work at the same time. I have been endorsed by the Democratic Municipal Officials Organization. So that means the entity that believes and trains on who is the best manager for a city believes that I am the best person right now and other elected officials in this race. We are fundamentally doing this because we deserve better. And look, Vice President Eric Adams is going to do what he needs to do right now, right? But let's be very clear. We deserve better than what we're getting right now. It is fundamentally not who we are as New Yorkers. It is fundamentally unconstitutional as being laid out. And as the only person who has White House, state, and local experience, I am best prepared to lead immediately. As a son of Jamaican immigrants, as someone who has went to public schools all my life, went to Northwest University and came back home, we want to make sure that we can lead our city better. So if you want someone who could be a manager for our city, who has done the work for 6 years in Albany, for 7 years in DC, and then came back home to help my people. My name is Michael Blake and I ask for your vote. Our website is blakefornyc.com, Blake, FORNYC.com. You can pull that out. You can see that there. I'm happy to take any and all of your questions. And you should elect the handsome Jamaican guy to be your mayor. Okay. All right. Let's go right now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Actually go to, is this on? Yeah. So we're actually going to go to Zoom to Tom Legata.
Oh,
from
Jim
DIG.
Yates. Oh,
Are you there, Tom? Okay, we are going to go to the first person in the audience. Please state your name and your club.
My name is Renee Kitt, CRDC, but I'm actually the Resident Association President of the Elliott Chelsea Houses, newly elected.
Okay.
I ran on an anti-demolition platform. So it is ballooned to the total to 1.9 billion. It was previously stated that demolition would be cheaper, but actually it is demolition. It is actually rebuilding and so-called redevelopment that's more expensive.
Yeah.
So, of course, we are public housing.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about this issue? I'm sure everyone has heard about Fulton and Elliott Chelsea.
That's right. It's fundamentally wrong. I actually represented more NYCHA residents and developments than any assembly district of anyone else before. We keep trying to tell tenants what's best for you as opposed to listening to you. And fundamentally, what's been happening is that you have entities through RAD and other efforts that are trying to come on in, try and demolish properties, demolish parking lots, and effectively say it's going to be better for you. It doesn't make any logical sense. What we actually do is take funding from our reserves to finally address the fundamental concerns that you all have been having for years of the $1 billion of NYCHA issues, whether it be boilers and elevators and rent, and equally make sure that we're not tearing something down, but actually building something up. And what has not been happening is that you have people who actually have not represented NYCHA in a real way trying to do these things. But I'm gonna take it a step further. There's a lot of folks that work at NYCHA right now and need to go to jail, right?
you.
Because they have not actually done the right things. They have lied. They make sure that you actually don't have heat and hot water. They consistently cover up what's going on. And if we did it the right way, then actually you would be protected in that manner.
Thank you very much for saying that. Make sure we're there at the perp walk. Even better, make sure my elected officials understand what you mean and understand what you say.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
We're going to take another one from the room.
Okay.
And yeah, can you please step up to the mic and please speak into the mic, say your name and say your club. Thank you.
William Hell's Kitchen, Democrats. Michael,
See.
if you get elected to succeed Teddy Long as mayor, will you reopen the former Long Island Railroad Rockaway line, which led to Rockaway Park and Far Rockaway from White Park Junction, which closed many years ago?
Thank you.
For those that couldn't hear, I would look into it. I would think we would, but I would want to look into it before I get a definitive answer right there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you have the
Mic check, mic check.
Mic check.
Can you raise the mic here on this microphone here?
They were just saying they're going to prioritize folks who haven't asked questions yet. Okay. Of course. Come on, come on. There we go. Now, come on. I know I'm trying to get to these questions right here. I see you trying.
Good evening.
Good to see you.
Thank you for coming.
Of course.
Let me ask you a fun question. What's one thing about your background and one policy idea that makes you stand out from the rest of the candidates in this race?
I'm the only one who actually has federal, state, and local experience, which we're watching every single day someone actually needs. And I'm the only person that's actually talking about guaranteed income so you can actually put more money in your pocket.
Thank you.
I like hand claps. That was good. That was good right there. You know what I'm saying? This good. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Barney. I'm with NYU Democrats.
Hey.
The DOJ is attempting to drop Eric Adams' charges, stating that the case distracted him from addressing President Trump's immigration crackdown regulations. How will you, as mayor, respond to the Trump agenda, particularly his oppressive immigration policies?
Let's be very clear. We have a compromised asset in the mayor. We just got to call it what it is. Because when you read the memo, let's be clear, the charges have not been dropped yet. They're trying to push the prosecutor to do. The actual memo says, to your question, Ronnie, right? It says in the memo that he does not have the time to implement illegal immigration actions as well as crime. That's what the memo says. So it's effectively saying you need to lock up more people and you need to deport more people, or I'm going to restore your charges. So we have to be very clear of how absolutely divisive and unacceptable it is. What would I do? First and foremost, we have to provide more support to our mayor's office of immigrant affairs. We have to have greater language access. We actually have to also make sure that we stop the nonsense of what Republicans are doing of trying to make this a Latino only conversation. It's Africans, it's Asians and Caribbeans who also need to care about what's happening here as well. And it's also being very attentive about what's going on in our schools. Attendance rates have gone down 6% already because people are terrified of what's going on right now, as well as our street vendors. We have to be very clear that the attacks that are coming from Trump and the silence of Eric Adams are actually destroying our communities every single day. I am someone who is a son of immigrants who has done this work. I was a co-sponsor of the DREAM Act, and I'm serious about doing the work moving forward.
The next question in the room,
You said,
we're gonna go,
okay, I'll go here.
let's go with the next question in the room and then we'll go to Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's gonna snow in a couple of hours, and snow removal in this city is terrible. Whether you're disabled or not, it is so dangerous. What is your plan as mayor to have a comprehensive snow removal, so we don't have to deal with slippery sidewalks or too much salt?
First and foremost, excellent question. We have to make sure that we are better with our pre-planning within the city. A mayor is a manager. And a lot of times what's happening when it comes not just for snow removal, but any of the debris that's happening is we're being reactive rather than proactive itself. I would rather us actually have salt on the streets and have our streets prepared and then wonder afterwards rather than all of a sudden people are suffering. But go a step further. We actually then have to think about our infrastructure, because when we have flooding that happens in the city for planning, as well as from an ADA perspective, we need to reimagine what's going on within our subways in particular or across our city. We don't have enough elevators. We don't have enough access points. And so then we're leading to families and individuals who actually can't move around our city because we didn't plan well. I'm coming at this as someone who has regularly seen this and is serious about how we transform this for the better. Thank you.
We are going to go to Zoom and Chris Ryan.
Hi.
Hello, Chris and Allie Ryan here.
Okay, double team. Okay.
Sorry, it's Ali Ryan.
Yes. So my question's about community gardens. East New York has the highest number of community gardens in the 5 boroughs. My neighborhood, Alphabet City, has the highest concentration of community gardens in the neighborhood. Would you support and approve legislation to make community gardens that are under the Parks Department become community land trusts?
Short answer is yes, and I go a step further. As someone who's been on the board of Green Bronx Machine, who has seen very directly the power and the impact of community gardens, it's not only necessary, it's restorative for our areas. Too often, we are not making it a point for that. COVID was a perfect example. If we had more spaces for people to be outside, our communities would be able to thrive more. And too often, we're treating what's happening in community gardens, on our parks and broader public spaces as, again, reactive rather than proactive. So yes, we're treated as part of the community trust, but also go back to the work of what I've done with Green Bronx Machine and other places to show the track record of support around that as well.
Thank you. We're going to go to Zoom. Anna Pastoressa. Anna, are you with us? Okay, do we have someone else in line?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we're going to
Yes,
take
I
the
am
next
with you.
person.
I'm with you. I was just trying to unmute myself. I'm so sorry.
No problem. Go ahead with your question, please.
Yes, my question is about Rikers Island. As we know, Rikers Island is supposed to be closed by 2027 and probably is not going to happen because of the delays by Mayor Adams. I also would like to know what you would do to speed up the closure of Rikers and to take care of the 60% of the people who are there who are mentally ill, who don't belong on that infamous island. Thank you.
You're welcome. I would say this is one of the areas where I'm actually really the most qualified in this race, because Khalif Browder was my constituent. And the injustice that happened to him and his family, where he had no business being there in the first place. So let's be very clear. We have to be more proactive and strategic so that someone's not getting the Rikers in the first place. Second, we have to be more thoughtful in terms of how we reimagine what's happening. If we actually had community-based borough jails that were connected to what's happening within our courts, where you have shorter distances, you actually give someone a chance for justice. The mental health crises that are consistently happening within Rikers has occurred and sustained because we've allowed for the stigma to happen there as opposed to actually helping our people. And so fundamentally, this is a humanity question, right? And quite frankly, I'll take it a step further. If we actually help more people have something in their book bag rather than trying to arrest them for a dime bag, we would be better in our city.
Excellent, thank you. We're going to take the next question from this room.
Hi, my name is Sophie, and I'm with the Manhattan Young Democrats. I want to know what's your plan for young people in the city in terms of making it more accessible and more affordable?
Well, if the weather was nicer, I usually wear my Air Force One. So I would have started right there by doing it that way. Look, first, I want more young people to be in leadership at City Hall, fundamentally, right? Like, I got love for our seasoned folks in the room, but if we actually want to change things and do it better, we should actually bring people into the fold in serious management positions. Equally, we have just done bad policy as Democrats that have hurt us with young people. So we're talking about how Republicans banned DEI, but we were the ones banning TikTok. It didn't really make much sense to me, right? And so when we think about how we can do this, first and foremost, make it easier for you to get a job and keep a job and to stay here. I do think there should actually be incentives for someone when they graduate, as every year that they are here.
We may be setting that same expectation for everybody else, and I want to just make sure that's in line with what we've done in the past, because
we're going to show people how to turn mute on for Zoom. Right. We have to actually incentivize our young, brilliant ones to be able to stay here. And we're not doing that right now. And I also think that we have to have dedicated housing for our college graduates to stay here as well, because it's fundamentally too expensive for you while you're here. And I think if we do that, then it actually creates conditions. If you are going to school and you're working in New York, but then you have to live someplace else, that's not New York. That's not our dream. So again, incorporating management, but also having the opportunity to make your money. Thank you. Of course.
Thank you. We're going to take another question from the room. Is there someone in line?
Hi, my name's Alexandra Taylor. I'm from Coda. I live in Little Italy, very close to a lot of the police officers in Lower Manhattan. And every day when I'm walking in my neighborhood, I'm seeing police officers sitting in their cars, watching people blow through red lights, watching people go through stop signs, and not doing anything to uphold a lot of the safety precautions that we want to see people being out on the streets, biking, walking, feeling like they could be safe in their neighborhoods. So my question is, how are we going to get police officers to uphold the law, stop being tacit in this community, and start being a part of it?
We have to address police accountability, police safety, criminal justice all at the same time. You have a lot of officers right now who want to do the right thing, but they feel if I do something, then someone may be back on the street the next day. I do think officers should have their body cameras on all the time, and that we should have increased street patrol, but we should not have stop and frisk come back, which is something that there are several people in the race right now who are very comfortable with that. And I also think that cops are the ones that actually trained around mental health, and we're regularly asking them to do things that is actually not in their job. We have a 988 hotline, but we actually also not supporting those that are addressing the mental health concerns. So if you do all at the same time, you would have officers who are going to do it the right way, that can be held accountable, who can have increased patrol outside, while also then having those that are actually addressing the mental health concerns in our community do that as well. You can do both at the same time. And when you do that, it will lead to people feeling safer, as well as greater transparency, as well as people feeling like, you know what, I can walk outside and be okay. Lastly, I know the time is up. There's other strategic things that we should be doing better in the city that would make us feel safer. For example, if you bring down scaffolding that happens too often in our city, and you actually increase lighting in the city, you would make it better for people to feel safer in our communities. You should not have to clutch your bag or wonder what's happening around the corner. If you did it that way, then people actually have a better chance to be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have time for one more question and then a 30-minute closing.
30-second.
No way.
It's all good.
Is there another question?
There's a, for the young,
Great.
for the college M's, everybody, I'm an alpha as well. There's fraternity sororities. I'm saying that right there.
Hi, my name is Mindy. I'm with VID and I'm a veteran teacher. Do you support the continuation of mayoral control over New York City public schools? If so, how would you improve accountability and transparency? But if not, what alternative governance structure do you propose?
I do support it, but it needs to be transformed significantly. So I'm the kid that was at PS 79's Jonathan Kozol Savage and Equality Children American Schools. So I saw this personally. I think we have to have greater increased opportunity of borough-based leadership, because too often you're asking one person to lead it from downtown. That doesn't make any sense to me. I think we actually have to empower educators to get more support immediately. And what does that mean? That means that we should reimagine not having someone eat their lunch at 10 or 10:30 in the morning, because if a kid is hungry, they can't focus. We actually have to have greater funding that's going to the veteran educators, and thank you for what you're doing right now every single day. I think we have to have greater incentives so that when you're doing all that you're doing, that you actually are not feeling like you go into your pocket to pay these bills.
And we have to close.
They never put it up.
How many minutes?
Seconds. I didn't even see it.
Oh, 20 seconds.
Okay.
That's your closing.
Okay. Oh, no, that's not my, for this answer.
Okay, continue.
So for this here, we have to be better about empowering you within your schools and within the local districts, rather than it being one centralized entity. And if you had someone who was managing it better, who came from that mindset, we'd be best prepared. I do believe, and you're going to see this tomorrow night on New York One, where I roll out my 32-page education plan. As the person who created the My Brother's Keeper program in New York State, which we are still the only one in the country, there is no one best prepared to actually lead for education in this race than Michael Blake.
Okay, your closing 30 seconds, please.
We desperately need change. We need new management, and we deserve better. I come to you as someone who has been doing the work locally, as an assembly member, nationally in the White House, and I came back home to help our communities. If you, like me, understand that we can address the true cost of living, affordable housing, and do this better when it comes to our public services. My name is Michael Blake, and I'm asking to be your mayor. I'm asking that you tell people what we're building. I'm asking that you go to BlakeForNYC.com to remind them what's possible, because tomorrow begins today. God bless you, everybody.
Thank you so much. And again, my name is Io Harrington, co-president of CODA, and I am going to turn the mic over to our co-moderator.
Thank you, Io, and thank you, Mr. Blake. Let's give one more round of applause to Mr. Blake. Michael. And we're about to introduce our next candidate. Just before we do that, I'll introduce myself. I'm Richard Corman. I'm president of Downtown Independent Democrats. Thank you all for coming here. Once again, as a reminder, each candidate will have 5 minutes for their opening statement. We'll then have 15 minutes for a Q&A, and a 30-second closing. Each question, as you now know, is 20 seconds with a minute to respond. So be prepared when you're ready to ask your questions, so you get it in within the 20 seconds and we don't have to cut you short. And we're giving priority to questions to the members of the clubs that have co-sponsored this. And we're also going to try to give first preference to people who haven't asked questions before. So now I'm happy to introduce our next candidate, former comptroller and borough president, Scott Stringer.
Thank you, everybody, and it's great to be with so many old friends and also some new friends. My name is Scott Stringer. I want to start out by telling everybody that the people in this neighborhood, the people in Lower Manhattan, were the people who believed very deeply in community. After 9/11, when I became borough president, I had the privilege of working with so many of you. A lot of people in your situation after the towers went down would have moved out and never come back, and who would have blamed them? But that's not what happened in Lower Manhattan. The people here actually fought back to rebuild this community. And you did such a great job that it's no surprise that every speculator wants to come and push the people who built this community out. And I'm running for mayor because I'm going to equalize the playing field once and for all. We have got to view our city through the lens of our neighborhoods. We have to view the city through the lens of what mayors can do, not to protect special interests, but to protect the people in our neighborhoods. And that's why I'm back, because I don't think this city government is doing what's right for the people of our city. Now, I also have skin in the Lower Manhattan game. My wife here is tonight here, DID member, but you give her, she always gets more applause. So I don't, but we're raising our two kids in Lower Manhattan. They went to Chelsea Prep. They went to public school. They very much are being raised by this village, and I am very proud to be here with all of you. Look, the mayor's race is a moment for us to think about what we want. A lot of candidates come to you and they tell you about all the things they're going to do, all the way they're going to spend money. There's never a discussion, seriously, about what qualities and what life experiences and government experiences mayors need to have to actually accomplish things. And I offer a tremendous amount of experience, a tremendous amount of competence, a real vision about what this city can be and who it can be for. But I also think a mayor has to prove to you before being elected what exactly that person has done governmentally that actually upended the political power structure and actually accomplished something. So you know that when I was in the state assembly, I didn't just introduce bills, I actually changed Albany. I ended empty seat voting, put forth the first rules reform in Albany, and my record fighting for tenants were the best in Albany. No question. And that's something I'm very proud of. They came for me, and I fought, but I walked the corridors alone, building, changed the rules of the game. When I became president, people in DID and other places in Lower Manhattan said to me, we need to create a different way to have community-based. What were we going to do for our community? I said, why don't we just depoliticize the committee boards? Independent screening panel. Let's get more people involved, parents, activists, seniors. Let's not say who should be on a board based on who supported me for borough president. And let's make sure that when we do have committee board meetings, we actually have urban planners working with community-based organizations. And I set up the Urban Planning Fellowship Program, which is a model for New York City. That's what I did as borough president. And we took on some very, very big fights. As controller, I'm going to be honest. There's been no one like me before or since. And that's just a fact. And I don't mean to insult anybody, but look what we did. We made sure that when I became controller, that we fixed the back office of the pension fund, which was hanging by a thread, fixed it within a year. Second, as controller, I did something that no one ever did before. We consolidated the 5 separate funds into one investment meeting. We streamlined the pensions for our retirees, got a 9% return even during COVID. And this is what I'm most proud of. While we were being fiscal stewards, you know what else we did? We divested $4 billion from fossil fuel. We divested from gun manufacturers. And let me tell you something, we divested from private prisons, and we did it while being fiscal stewards. Nobody's done that before and never since. And finally, I just want to say to all of you, the problem with the Adams administration is too many people has been asleep. Not Chris Marte, but too many people have been asleep. Is he here? Oh, I knew that. But too many people have been asleep. The controller's office has been asleep. Could you imagine if I was controller, I would do with Adams what I did with de Blasio? I held him accountable. I subpoenaed him. I took him to court. I made sure that the mayor did the people's business. Right now, Adams has gotten away with it all, and partly that's the fault of our government. So I'm running not because I believe that I need another job. It's been fun hanging out with the kids. It's been great living in Lower Manhattan. I want to run because I want 4 years to fix this city. I want 4 years to bring reform to our city agencies, 4 years to bring this city back. I've got the skills, the experience, and I understand how to hire the best and the brightest. Lastly, I know what I don't know, okay? But I know how to bring people into government who know what the hell they're doing to build affordable housing, to fight for healthcare, to build our education system. That's what I'm going to do for all of you. I need your help, though. I need your help. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. Now let's get to a question here in the room. Now, if you haven't asked a question, please, let's give those people first priority.
All right. Good evening. So my name is Shashank, Hell's Kitchen Democrats and Manhattan Young Democrats, former NYU Dems over there. Yeah, that's what it's for. What is your biggest promise to young people and college kids here at NYU? As a young guy and a college kid, I want that question for you. How can you make our lives more affordable and keep New York City as a place that we could live in long term than just a stop along the way in our life?
You probably won't believe this, but I was the vice president of the Manhattan Young Democrats before they had fax machines and Twitter and all that. So, but yours is a question about what I call the compact, right? And the compact that I believed in as borough president was that if we could attract students from around the world to come to our universities, whether it's NYU, Columbia, Fordham, CUNY, the job of government was to make sure you get a great education, but then we have to keep you here. Because what's the point of giving you this great education and you all say it's too expensive, I can't be here, I don't like the lack of park space, our cultural Mecca, New York is not properly funding the kind of arts installations that we need, et cetera, et cetera. So my job is to go back to the compact. If you come here and get educated, I will make sure that we have affordable housing, that we have economic opportunity, that we have safe streets, and that you will have the opportunity to think about your own careers and opportunity in New York City. I promise you I'll do that.
Another question in the room.
Hi, Alan Schilker from Downtown Independent Democrats.
We meet again.
I knew Scott when he was a young man. But my question is, I live at Independence Plaza and the landlord is currently trying to build a 90-story building in the midst of the complex. It's not affordable housing in any way. It's all luxury housing. And we don't need a 90-story building. Will you commit, when you become mayor, to help us fight against the landlords building these complexes? They're doing the same thing at Southbridge. They want to build a 90. Time. I'm a fast talker. How could it be? Go ahead.
You know, as borough president, we took on the big developers and we made it clear that our priority as a community is affordability, but also density that's in line with our neighborhoods. I know a lot of people talk about density and increasing density, but I also want to put a pitch in for actually making sure neighborhoods stay neighborhoods and that we don't overrun the people in Independence Plaza, one of the great Mitchell-Lama buildings, that we don't overrun people to the point where they have to be pushed out, because luxury development means higher costs, higher dry cleaning, restaurant costs. It brings in an economic center that, quite frankly, many people in the neighborhood who live in public housing in Mitchell-Lama can't afford. And I believe we need a mayor who's going to prioritize communities. There's enough space for density. I've done those studies as borough president, as controller, but a 90-story building in Independence Plaza is insane to me. It's really insane. And we need our government to prioritize what we're going to think about. And I think about affordable housing. I think about Mitchell-Lama too.
Okay, thank you.
And question online. Let's go to Richard Marins.
Hi, Richard Marins, Hell's Kitchen Dems. I want to ask if you support a casino at the Hudson Yards, Western Rail Yards, or any other area in Midtown Manhattan?
Hell no. If I want a casino, I'd live in Vegas and run for a controller there or something. No, we have to make sure that our communities get the right kind of economic development, and casinos and large development that accompanies it with actually no givebacks in these proposals, right? I've yet to hear of a proposal for a casino that speaks to the community first. So we're going to have a mayor who's going to scrutinize and hold our elected officials accountable to these kind of mega developments for the sole purpose of spinning a roulette wheel, which seems to me to be a little odd.
How do you feel about the rezoning of the Western Rail Yards?
Sorry, just one question per person.
Sorry.
And online, Ronnie Wolf.
Hi, downtown Democrats. Are you aware of the city-imposed arts fund fee to convert legal residential Soho and NoHo buildings? And if elected mayor, would you end this egregious legal action which impacts seniors and artists who develop these neighborhoods?
The answer is yes, and I think we should remind everybody that there are so many communities in our great city that really started out as industrial places, not a lot of commercial development. People didn't want to live in these neighborhoods, especially the beginning of Soho and NoHo. But the artists came to communities like that all over the city. And no surprise, they reinvigorated communities. Small businesses came, real diversity came. And what follows is this same sad story of the speculators follow the artists. And I think we have to break that up. We have to preserve the beauty of our cultural diverse neighborhoods. We have to honor the fact that this artist industry is a $110 billion asset to the city, employing 85,000 people. When I'm mayor, we're going to have a cultural affairs department that is going to think a lot differently about investing not just in art organizations, but in direct help to artists so that they can thrive in the city.
Thank. And in the room.
So hello, my name is Renee Kitt. I'm the Resident Association President of the Elliott Chelsea Houses. You were a member of the Chelsea NYCHA Working Group. Its main tenet, no demolition. Your son went to school at Chelsea Prep on the street where the proposed demolition will be going through. You have just said the goal is not to push out the people who have built the community. The total for the proposed demolition has been ballooned to 1.9 billion. So do you support this proposal?
I do not support this proposal. I think the tenants should have a voice and a say. And I think the first priority is to rehab and to make sure that people can live there. Let's put it where it is right now. The tenants in NYCHA, and I want you to know, other people come here, they say they audited NYCHA once or twice and, things like that. When I was controller, I audited NYCHA 19 times, 19 times. Nobody audits anything 19 times. I'm telling you, nobody. So I didn't just check a box, have a meeting or a round table. We actually held NYCHA accountable to repairs. And I started this work back when I was a state assemblyman, when I was representing Amsterdam Houses and Harborview. And I walked through Chelsea Elliott because I'm part of that community, and you know that. So I'm going to do everything I can to support the equity position of NYCHA tenants. You know what equity position is, folks? NYCHA tenants built the neighborhoods of Chelsea. You see, we only think of NYCHA residents as, oh, well, that's poor people live there. That's not true. People in NYCHA made Chelsea valuable. Why do you think they wanted to privatize the buildings in Manhattan that are NYCHA residents? Because of the land value. So we're not going to do that. We're not going to play that game.
Tony Simone.
Sorry.
How about you just elect me and then I could do it myself?
Thank you. One more in the room.
Mr. Minsley.
Good evening, Morton Minsley from DID. Scott, as a lifelong New Yorker and a parent of two young men or young boys to men, what is your who attend public school? What is your vision if you're elected for the public schools of the city of New York?
I'm a public school kid.
I know that.
My two boys, which now goes to the school your kids go to. I believe in public education. I think it's just the amazing opportunity for kids to learn from one another and our diversity. But look, here's how we're going to help parents and kids. Early education. I'm going to baseline 3K, baseline pre-K. Then we're going to build our Tri-Share childcare plan, where we're actually going to give relief to parents who can actually keep in the workforce and help our children. And we've got to extend the school year to 4:30, because that's the way parents will be able to access employment, and the kids can then fill the gaps with the kind of after school that they need. Look, after school is a privilege. It's not guaranteed. Here's what happens. If you're a parent and you have time and you can get on your computer and you can time it at 8 o'clock at night when everything is going down, you get your kids into the after school you want. If you're a parent with no computer, if you're a parent who's a frontline worker but has two kids, your kids never go to after school. What's wrong with that? That means that we are not an equal education system, and I want to fix that.
Thank you. Do we have time for more questions? Oh, very good. Let's go online to Diane Stein.
Hi, Diane Stein, Downtown Independent Democrats. What can you do about bicyclists who don't follow the rules of the road and endangered pedestrians, especially those who ride on the sidewalks?
Couple of things. First, we have got to start educating these cyclists to one very, very scary fact, and it affects their parents and grandparents mostly. When you get to be a certain age, the one thing they tell you is don't fall. I'm really serious. When you get to be my age, the whole thing is don't fall. When I'm about to fall, my wife lunges to save me because she knows that while you may not get hurt at that moment, it starts to create real health issues. So every time you ride a bike the wrong way and you brush against somebody who's could be your mother or your father or your grandparent, you're really committing a very serious offense. So one is education and two is enforcement. And I believe that we should have more bike lanes. I believe we should create a transportation alternative city. That's the dream, and bikes are part of that. But with biking, like cars, comes great responsibility to the people who you love the most. And you should treat them that way. I think the city has to do a better job, DOT, in education. We do need to have enforcement, but I also think we need to be respectful of one another because this is life-threatening.
I'd like to get to more people who haven't asked questions, so I think we have one in the room.
Scott. Hi. Melissa Schiffman, Grand Street Dems. To bring it back to public school, been on the PTA and SLT for over a decade already. Right now, kids are terrified, families are terrified, kids aren't coming to school. And we on the PTA are talking about how to protect kids if ICE should come knocking. What would you do as mayor to prevent families from being this scared?
I got to tell you, I remember a year ago when I was watching Eric Adams on television with a bunch of cops going into a public school, basically applauding himself for the fact that we had migrant children sleeping on the floors of a gymnasium with one blanket and a single parent, if they were lucky, were there. He then proceeded to create this aura of anger and hostility to migrants, which is basically shouting out every immigrant. You are right. I know this from our own school experience. Parents are afraid to get their kids educated. I promise you that as mayor, and the reason I started out telling you that I've done the big things, not just mouth the words, I will figure out the strategies we need to ensure the safety of migrant babies, to ensure the safety of migrant parents, because let me tell you something, in that gymnasium that Eric Adams was in, what he didn't understand was that kid sleeping on the floor is a future Pulitzer Prize winner, a future engineer, a future mayor of New York City. How dare you minimize him and put him in dangerous conditions? What's the difference between a cage and a floor on a gymnasium cold night? Come on.
One more question from someone in the room who has not asked yet.
Hi, Scott. I'm Kim from Grand Street Dems. If and when Trump tries to pull the plug on congestion pricing, do you have any thoughts on how you would fight that or reinstate it?
Look, I believe that this is going to be a chess, not checkers moment. It's going to take the governor to step up and to do the kind of negotiating with the future Speaker Hakeem Jeffries and Majority Leader to be again Chuck Schumer. They have got to organize the business community that Trump listens to. We have to show how important this is. And I also think while we're at it, we also have to finish the job on congestion pricing so that we unify the city. We need to do our dedicated bus lanes. We're supposed to have 150 miles every year. We have 12 miles built. It's really outrageous. How do you tell people in Queens, take 2 buses and 2 trains to get to work? It's not fair. It's not right. When I started with congestion pricing almost 20 years ago, that was going to be the plan. You build it out first, and then you have congestion pricing. We did it the other way around. So one, I think we have to prove to our skeptics that we're committed to a 5-borough transportation agenda. And I also think we need to seriously negotiate. One of the skills that I learned when I was a state assembly, I didn't have Democrats in the Senate to work with. I had to actually negotiate domestic violence legislation, New York City legislation. I was the city's chair, and I had to learn how to negotiate. And that's going to be very key to keeping congestion pricing.
Thank you. And now you're closing. 30 seconds.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for doing this. This is really a tremendous turnout, and I want to thank the clubs. Many of you have known me for a very long time. You know that I've worked with you for 16 years in Lower Manhattan. But I do want to address the issue, what do we do to beat Adams and beat Cuomo? And I want to just give you the real deal facts. I will tell you why I think I win. One, the polls say I do. I'm running second to Cuomo, and in some polls ahead of Adams already. No other candidates. Some of the candidates are in single digits. So if we want to win, we also have to pick the candidates. Two, I'm going to have enough money to run. And I think that's also important. So when you pick somebody, the last thing I just want to say is imagine a debate between Cuomo and a candidate for mayor. For those of you who've been around a long time, remember Spitzer Stringer? You ain't seen nothing yet, Cuomo Stringer.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Scott Springer. We have our next candidate in the room. It's Whitney Tilson. Yes, we do. So just as a reminder, we have a 5-minute opening statement. We have 15 minutes Q&A and a 30-second closing. And questions will be 20 seconds and the answer 1 minute.
Great.
And so I'd like to introduce Whitney Tilson, formerly a hedge fund manager, a philanthropist and political activist, and now running for mayor.
Great. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. If I were to summarize my campaign, it would be, if you love this city, you're worried that it's heading in the wrong direction and are looking for new leadership, I am the only change candidate in the Democratic primary. I'm the only one who's not a career politician and who has a business background. When I'm elected mayor, I'm going to clean out widespread corruption and run this city a lot better. I am a lifelong hardcore Democrat. I grew up in Tanzania and Nicaragua. My parents were among the first couples to meet and marry in the Peace Corps. And throughout my life, I've been tackling big problems, fighting injustice, and helping people who are hurting. 35 years ago, my first job out of college was right here in New York City, helping start Teach for America. 5 years ago, when we were the epicenter of the global pandemic, and 800 New Yorkers were dying every day, I didn't flee the city. I spent 12 hours a day for months building and operating, helping with the field hospital in Central Park. And as recently as 4 months ago, I was literally dodging Russian drones on the front lines in Ukraine, providing aid to the soldiers fighting for their country's freedom. My wife and I raised our 3 daughters here in the city, and they're now back building their lives. But this happy story of a healthy city in which the next generation stays and thrives is becoming increasingly rare. You want proof? We've lost in less than 5 years, more than 700,000 New Yorkers have left. It's about 8% of our population. Of the 70 largest cities in America, that's second worst. Care to guess which is number one that's lost 10% of its population? San Francisco. So people are leaving first and foremost because they can't afford their rent. While rents across the country have stabilized and are even declining, here where they're already the highest, they're still going up. It's basic supply and demand. A lot of people still want to live here, but we've made it almost impossible to build new housing and even to maintain our existing housing units. Second reason people are leaving is they don't feel safe. After decades of progress, we had become one of the safest large cities in America as recently as 5 years ago. But since then, the 7 major felonies are up an average of 52%. Eric Adams is lying to you. We have become materially less safe. And lastly, families with children aren't happy with the school system in which we're spending $40 billion, $43,000 a kid, almost triple the national average, yet barely half the kids can read at even a basic level. Now, I don't want to be all gloom and doom. It's not too late. We have incredible people and assets, and we're by far the richest city in the world. You combine that with a high tax rate, and we have a $115 billion city budget, double that of any other city. But what are we getting for it? Show of hands, how many of you think you're getting super high quality services from the government for the super high taxes you're paying? Yeah. For what we're paying, we should be living in paradise. Businesses should be clamoring to invest here. There should be new construction, especially of affordable housing everywhere. Our subways should be the safest and cleanest, and families should be flocking to put their children in our pristine public schools. But instead, what are we getting? Widespread mediocrity, if not outright failure. And as a result, New Yorkers are hurting and angry. Now, I wish I could blame Republicans for this. but I can't. We are a one-party city and state, and City Hall has become corrupt, bloated, and beholden to special interests. It's a toxic combination of bad ideas executed badly. So look, if you think the city's doing great and the career politicians running it are doing a great job and you want another one, I'm not your guy. But if you're fed up with how they're running it and want real change, I'm the only change candidate in the race. When I'm elected, I'm not going to owe anything to anyone, and I'm going to be solely fighting for the people of New York. I pledge to end street homelessness, cut crime in half, double the rate of construction of affordable housing, and make New York the greatest city in the world for small businesses. So I hope you'll join me in the fight for greater prosperity, affordability, and safety for every New Yorker, because we deserve better. Thank you.
First question in the room.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ethan. I'm a new member of CRDC. I don't know your background very well. I doubt other people do too. So I'm curious if you could just tell us a little bit about your executive or management experience and why we should trust you to run a huge agency, basically.
Sure. I've been in the business world for 30 plus years since I finished business school. I have built a half dozen small businesses here in the city over those years. My specialty in the investing world was investing in big broken public companies, think McDonald's, Home Depot, Walmart, Facebook over the years, that were encountering real issues and difficulties, needed turning around. I can tell you in every case, successful turnarounds had a change agent from the outside as a CEO who brought in a great team of competent people, and that's what I'm going to do for the city. Thank you.
Next here in the room.
Hi, my name is Mara Fitzgerald. I'm with Village Independent Democrats. My question is this. The MRTA promised that those communities and individuals that were devastated by the racist war on drugs would be the prime beneficiaries of legalization. Yet what we're seeing is big canna and multi-state, multinational behemoths swooping in, grabbing up social equity licenses and all the real estate. What is your plan to ensure that justice-impacted operators have the priority and the resources they need for success here in the 5 boroughs?
Yeah, I agree with what you said. My campaign manager, actually Trevette Knowles, was working for the state, closing down those unlicensed cannabis shops because, you know, when the unlicensed players are out there, it puts the people who are playing by the rules, where the licenses were set aside, as you correctly note, for people in the communities that were most affected by the war on drugs that went way too far and devastated communities. And so I'm glad that the city and the state have finally gotten together, are shutting down the unlicensed ones so that the legit ones can thrive as they should. And I support that. Go ahead.
So yes, we're going to go online now.
Oh, sure.
And let's go to Christine Gorman.
Christine Gorman, Hell's Kitchen Democrats. How much did you pay in federal, state, and city taxes last year?
Oh, gosh.
That much?
$750,000, roughly speaking. Next question.
One more online, Pete Davies.
Hi, yeah, Pete Davies, Downtown Independent Democrats and Broadway Residents Coalition in Soho. Asking about outdoor dining, are you aware that the mayor's Department of Transportation is ignoring ADA requirements in many cases for setups for the outdoor dining structures? And if so, what are you going to do about that?
Is the premise of your question that outdoor dining should, it needs to be ADA compliant, or else restaurants should be forced to comply with that? Is that your question?
Yeah, they are under, the law requires that they comply with that.
Yeah. I wasn't aware that that was a problem. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. Generally speaking, I will tell you that small business in the city are feeling under assault. I consistently hear the following words: they treat us like the enemy. And so I would want to, of course, I want all of our restaurants to be accessible to all New Yorkers. But I think we have to be very careful that we are not creating an environment in which The other thing they consistently tell me is when I ask them, okay, you've been in business in the city for 20 years, and this applies to retailers, restaurants, real estate operators. How is the environment today relative to your entire history of doing business in New York? Every single one of them says it's the worst it's ever been. That is not commensurate with a healthy city. Next question.
Yes, is there someone on the line that hasn't asked a question yet?
Jackie Lara.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so I'm Renee Kitt, Resident Association President of the Elliott Chelsea Houses. You said you support the RAD PAC because it uses the public and private partnerships to unlock funds for needed repairs and investment in developments. The RAD PAC program will also help avoid the demolition of existing NYCHA complexes like the Chelsea Houses. Then you say, I do support the rebuilding of the Chelsea Houses. The only problem, you have to demolish it to rebuild it. Therefore, how do you support this program? Because it seems like it's coming out of both sides.
Yeah, my understanding is that by law, no one will be displaced. This infill program, which I support, because we need these facilities. Both we need more new housing. It's going to result in going from 4,000 to 6,000 units. And by law, no one will be displaced. The new buildings will be up. People will be able to move into brand new apartments, and every resident will have a brand new apartment. Only then will the demolition occur of dilapidated buildings. That makes sense, and we need to do a lot more of it.
It doesn't make sense because frankly, the displacement.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, we need to go to the next question. In the room?
Hi, my name is Fenner. I'm a recent member of Manhattan Young Democrats. And my question is, one of your highest profile donors and backers is hedge fund manager Bill Ackman, who is a very proud supporter of the Trump administration. My question to you is, one, why do you think he supports Trump and also then sees you as the choice for the mayor of New York City? And two, sorry, that'll be my question.
Sure. Bill and I are friends from college going back 38 years. And we remain friends to this day. I believe in being able to disagree without being disagreeable. And so I strongly disagreed with where he came out in supporting Trump and tried to persuade him not to. This sadly happened with a number of my friends, and a couple reasons why. I think our party has been badly managing this city, and people are fed up with it. And you see that in Trump's share of the vote in New York, doubling in the past 8 years. I also think the far left of the Democratic Party has made a lot of Jews in the world feel very unsafe. My wife and children are Jewish, and I think we as a party need to disavow that fringe element of our party. So that said, Bill and I agree largely on what needs to happen here in New York City.
Thank you.
And let's go online to Carol Ott.
Hi. I'm with the Chelsea Reform Democratic Club, and I have a question about co-ops and condos. They today are the only affordable route to home ownership in the city, but existing co-op and condo residents are struggling to meet the costs of compliance with facade laws and climate mobilization, increased property taxes, and insurance costs. Many longtime residents in these buildings are leaving because of these rising costs.
Please ask your question. You only have 20 seconds.
What would you do
Ask
to
it now.
support co-ops and condos as they try and meet these financial challenges?
Yeah. I'm in a co-op, and we had a little bit of loose facade, and up went the scaffolding for a couple of years. The costs were enormous. Have you noticed? And no other city does this. They might put a little bit of netting. They don't require scaffolding that stays up. So I think it's a stain on our city. It's an eyesore that we allow this. I think generally speaking, we've, as a city, in almost every area, from housing to crime, et cetera, we've taken good ideas, but because there's no opposition party, they tend to get taken to extremes. So a lot of the regulations that make it both prohibitive to build new housing, but to maintain our existing housing stock. And as you correctly point out, are pricing people out of this city. I think we need to carefully rethink and reevaluate everything because we're losing the race here. And other cities and other states are competing with us. We have lost 13 House seats since 1970 in New York State. Florida has gained 13 seats. People are voting with their feet, and we better listen to them.
So in the room now?
Okay, William Hell's Kids Democrats. If you get elected to succeed Teddy Long as mayor, do you plan to run buses across the Frog's Neck and Triborough bridges between Queens and my borough, which, like Staten Island, is a forgotten borough?
I don't know enough about that to answer. I'm sorry.
I'll get back to you.
Do we have another question in the room?
Hi, Tom, DID. My one issue today is NYPD and the dozens of officers that attempt suicide. For military veterans like me, this spells systemic failure. No one's talking about officers being unfit, and I believe oversight's getting harder, so here's my ask. Commit both in campaign and admin to never cite crime stats without also reporting police conduct stats. The conversation has to start somewhere, and you can make the commitment. You can do it now. The floor is yours.
Is your question about police suicide or about police violating people's rights and so forth?
It's more about them being unfit and being a lack of oversight.
Yeah, I think we have to balance holding bad apples accountable. But by and large, I think the vast majority of New York City police officers are doing a very difficult and dangerous job, are committed to protecting us. And so we need to have a system that holds them accountable. And I'm glad they're all wearing body cameras these days. But at the same time, my biggest concern is that today we are at a 34-year low in the number of police officers, about double the number are retiring every month than we are able to recruit. The number of applicants to become police officers gone from 18,000 2017 to 8,000 today. And that's one of the reasons we're not refilling the pipeline. And so I'm committed to getting us back to the number of police officers we had about 5 years ago when we were a whole lot safer. Right now, they're understaffed.
Okay, online, Mike Schweinsberg. Mike, did you want to ask? Oh, there you are.
Mike, you're muted.
Mike, we'll come back to you if we can. You're in the room.
Hi, my name is Mindy. I'm VID and a veteran teacher. Do you support the continuation of mayoral control over the New York City public schools? If so, how would you improve accountability and transparency? And if not, what alternative governance structure do you propose?
Yes, I strongly support it and have for 30 plus years, well, since it came into effect. The New York City public school system, as I noted earlier, spending $40 billion a year out of our $115 billion budget. And it is the epitome of a corrupt, bloated system that is beholden to special interests. There is a systemic problem with the system, which is it primarily serves the adult interests in the system, not the children who don't vote, by the way. We have a system that is actually mirrored across the United States, where the quality of public school you get is a function of two things: the color of your skin and your zip code. It's deeply unfair. It contributes to almost every social problem we have, the school to prison pipeline, et cetera. And I've spent 35 years fighting to bring greater equality into our system, improving it across the board. I would lift the charter cap for sure. I've been on the board of KIPP charter schools for more than 20 years. These are very high quality public schools delivering great educational options to parents. And I would hire a super independent, super qualified schools chancellor as my first and most important hire.
And one more question in the room.
Hi, good evening. Morton Minsley from Downtown Independent Democrats. I was looking at your bio and I saw you had some type of relationship with Bill Ackman, who endorsed Donald Trump for president. Do you?
This was,
I already
This was a-
answered that question.
I was asking
Do
this.
we want to ask another one?
Oh, well, do you support the Trump proposal to say eliminate the Department of Education, eliminate funds for public housing, and eliminate basically funds for social programs all across America?
Yeah, absolutely not. I think this Elon Musk-led DOGE is unconstitutional, and it's a crazy way to cut costs. There is a lot of fat in the federal government. There's a lot of fat in New York City government, but I'm going to go after it the right way, which is I'm going to appoint 155 people. That's how many the mayor gets to appoint. The head of the 37 departments, all the second-tier deputy folks as well, whose first job is going to be to take the enormous amount of money they get. In every area, we spend more than any other city. But what's coming out at the other end is pretty poor. So their first task will be serve the city, the people of New York City better, cut crime, educate children better, kill more rats, fill more potholes, serve the people in New York better. But secondly is find me the fat. In that $115 billion budget, nobody ever has thought that there's less than $10 billion of fat in that budget. The thing is, you don't come in and just turn off the spigot from the outside. Then you're cut. I want to find the fat, not cut the muscle and the bone. So then I'm going to take that savings. I'm going to reinvest it in helping the homeless, extra tutoring for kids who aren't reading at age 10, and so forth.
Thank you. I'm going to give you a couple of more seconds on that answer. My question is around, you can tell the values of a city by looking at its budget. What are the 5 top things you would do with the budget on day one?
Well, thank you for giving me a little more time to answer that question, because I can't raise taxes. So we can't keep growing the budget by raising taxes. We're already pricing people out of this city and businesses and our tax base. 1% of the people in the city pay 47% of the city taxes. With my highest priorities, once we find a lot of fat in that budget and find the savings, would be we've got to get, I will end street homelessness by outlawing street homelessness. I do not think any civilized city should be the law where people are allowed to sleep outside. Now, of course, everybody goes crazy and says you're criminalizing homelessness. I'm not. No one's going to be, thrown over to Rikers. We need to provide more mental health beds. By and large, we've got 95% of New York City homeless have a roof over their head tonight. It's the last 4,000 or so, the last 5% that we are failing to serve, and we have to end it. You have to first forbid it, but then you build more drop-in centers, more mental health facilities so that people have a place to go, and we will end street homelessness in this city.
Thank you. And a 30-second closing.
Oh, thank you all. I think I'm the last person here, so I'm the only no, I'm not. Okay. Oh, really? I didn't know that. I hope I've made it clear, folks, that I love this city. But I'm really, really worried. The city is heading the wrong direction. People are voting with their feet and leaving this city because they can't afford their rent. They don't feel safe, and they're not satisfied with the schools. And if you think that someone from within the system can reform the system, I think you're kidding yourself. The only way to fix this city and get it going in the right direction is someone from the outside who's not beholden to the system. I'm the only person in the race with that background, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have just been informed that Senator Jessica Ramos is in the building. So we're going to welcome her in, give her a round of applause. Amazing. That's your podium with your mic. My name is Jasmine Sanchez and I'm the club president of Three Bridges Democratic Club. Just giving you some logistics and to the crowd as well. Candidates will have 5 minutes for an opening statement. There will be 15 minutes with Q&A. Questions to the crowd and on people on Zoom, 20 seconds. We do not need a preamble. We will cut you off. And then we have 30-second closing as well. And you'll have 90 seconds to answer the questions, Senator. 1 minute to answer questions, Senator Ramos.
All right, well, good evening. Buenas noches, everyone. I'm Jessica Ramos from Queens, born, raised, and raising. I work as a state senator. This is my 7th legislative session. I chair the Labor Committee, and I'm the proud mom of 2 boys. I'm running for mayor of our amazing city because I'm fed up. I'm really angry at the way we have been running the city as of late. And that's especially true with who we have in the presidential office now. I'm not going to get into everything that happened last night. I'm sure you're as disappointed and as embarrassed as I am. But I have to tell you, there is a lot that we can do as New Yorkers working together in order to push our city forward. I have actually been in public service now for 20 years. I started my career as a city council staffer during the Bloomberg administration. I left to work in labor for almost a decade before I was appointed to the de Blasio administration. And well, now I've been in the Senate. So I've had a front row seat now to 3 mayoral administrations. I was a part of the team that delivered on universal pre-K. Something that I feel very proud of, and that really breaks my heart to hear care about our children enough, because he continues to play games with the funding for our schools. And it seems like instead of progressing towards universal childcare, we're actually regressing. And in a city where the real estate industry just holds such a tight grip, it's really important that all of us speak up and make sure that that thing that's being built actually does work for us. I'm also a former community board member like my dad. So I've been thinking through a lot of land use issues. Yes, fellow community board nerds. All right. Yes. Listen, it's a lot of hard work, volunteer, unpaid work that is really valuable. And we have to be able to give New Yorkers more power in our city when it comes to deciding how resources are used, especially land, since it's so finite. And there are so many boondoggles that have happened throughout our lifetime. And as a rent stabilized tenant, I have to tell you, I've been a rent stabilized tenant for 13 years. My parents are working class people. I'm still very much working class. Having that rent stabilized apartment allowed me to go through divorce. Going from a 2-income household. You can clap for my divorce. That's okay. Go right ahead. I did. But going from a 2-income household to a 1-income household is really, really difficult. And that's really who rent stabilized apartments should be for people who are really still trying to make it in New York City. So thank you, Jasmine. Thank you to all of the clubs. I love that you guys are so united and are making the best use of everybody's time so that we can hopefully be able to work together and make history. Because if we keep electing the same people who get the same donations from the same players as always, we're going to get the same results. And we want this city to continue being a city for absolutely everybody. Thank you so much for having me tonight, and I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to remind everyone there was 266 people on Zoom with 200 people here in the crowd, and this is being recorded. So yes, give it up. Thank you, Marquise. Thank you.
Yeah, great job, everybody.
We're going to take a question from the floor.
My question is, we have community boards representing us. What is your position on having lobbyists and people who belong to lobby organizations being on those boards?
No.
Okay, that's it. So what do you think about warehousing rent stabilized apartments?
No.
Look, question.
But much more seriously, although they are very strict no's from me, I think that one of the key things that we need to do in order to do a rent freeze and do it responsibly for rent controlled apartments is actually property tax reform. So people in less affluent communities have been paying more in property taxes than more affluent communities. And I'll give you myself as an example. As a tenant, I pay $5,000 a year in property taxes through my rent. Whereas someone who owns a brownstone in Park Slope pays $3,000 a year in property tax. And that ends up being an obstacle for the development of affordable homes in the outer boroughs specifically, where it is that we need to be focusing on a lot more of the building, while here we're focusing on a lot of the protecting of our existing housing stock. So that and many other things like our water rates are things that we should be working on in order to make sure we're staying affordable.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We're going to the Zoom. Mike, you have the floor. If you can unmute yourself.
I got it this time. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, Mike.
Hi. Jessica, as I mentioned earlier, transit has become the darling of the press, particularly elevators. And it's fiercely championed by organizations that are not recognized as disability advocacy organizations. Please speak to the other concerns of the largest minority, people with disabilities. I'll give you a hint. Employment is our number one issue.
Is there a question? Jessica did not get a question from that.
Question. I heard something about somebody being the darling of the media, and then
Right.
something about
Transit.
people with disabilities and organizations.
But when asked about people with disabilities, the answer is always subway elevators. That's not an answer. Our number one issue is
To you, because you're muted again.
my
said
God, why
employment.
do you keep muting me?
The number one issue is employment.
How about holding landlords accountable for making sure that they're helping people with disabilities make their apartments livable spaces for them? We need a lot of landlord accountability in New York City. And so making sure that they're installing ramps. I've had situations in my district back home in Jackson Heights where I had to put pressure on a landlord in order to make sure that he was installing ramps and actually making some accommodations in a bathroom for a teacher in one of my son's schools, actually. And so I want to be able to do that and make sure that DOB and HPD are actually fully staffed and resourced to do this job.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, right now, as chair of the Labor Committee, I actually carry legislation in order to help people with disabilities have a higher wage. That is a big deal when you are only able to make a kind of a sub-minimum wage as compared to other people with different abilities. And obviously, it's the same prices we're paying for rent and for everything else. So I don't see that as fair.
Thank you. We're going to take a question from the floor.
Thank you. Hi, Senator Ramos. The current mayor and speaker are not animal friendly. For pets and local wildlife, it has been a challenge to get any legislation passed this session. As mayor, how would you protect animals?
So one of the things I would love to do is actually make it easier for people to be able to spay and neuter their pets. I know particularly in the Bronx, but obviously in all boroughs, this is somewhat of a challenge, particularly in terms of cost and accessibility. So in being able to control particularly the cat population, and thinking about our feral cats, again, going back to issues that we have in my district, that is something that I want to be able to do. I think overall, there's a great need for an animal hospital that is affordable. There is also issues with the horse carriages at near Central Park. I want to get them off the street and into the park, at least as a transition. And that's actually a conversation that I've already been able to start with the Transportation Workers Union because I have that relationship. So that's something, part of the few things that we're going to be able to explore. I'm trying to stay on time.
Thank you. We're going to take a question from Zoom. Miriam Fisher.
I'm from Chelsea Reform Democratic Club and a disability advocate, but I'm also very concerned about our healthcare system. And every day I read something in the paper about Medicaid, Medicare being cut. As a state senator, have you been in support of the New York State Healthcare Act, which is a version of Medicare for all? And what would you do as mayor to protect everyone's health care?
Ma'am, I am the co-prime of the New York Health Act in the New York State Senate. And that is because I've been working very hard to help Senator Rivera, who is the sponsor of the bill, be able to overcome some of the hurdles he's had with the labor unions who have been standing in the way of us being able to pass the bill. To take a lot of money up front to be able to do it, but it's going to pay us back in dividends and certainly in healthcare outcomes in the long run. I think as mayor, my job is not only to continue that advocacy with the governor, who despite many disagreements that we have on issues, I've been able to find a working relationship with her, particularly on childcare, but on a few other issues as well. But I want to be able to continue that advocacy. Other than that, out of our 11 city hospitals, I want to be able to add mental health wings and actually have a place for people to seek affordable therapy. And that way we're fighting the stigma and nobody knows why you're there. But that's something to weave into the rest of our lives as well.
We're going to take a question from the floor. Our youngest member of Three Bridges.
Hello.
Hello, my name is Hazley. And how are you gonna protect my friends from ice and me?
I promise you that I'm going to protect you from ICE. You know, my mom and dad were undocumented when I was born in this country. They came from Colombia in the 1970s, and I was very lucky to be born here. But I have to say that when I was your age, I also got to lose a few of my friends because they were deported with their families. And that was really, really tough. But, you know, those should actually only be adult issues. ICE or anyone who looks like ICE should have no place near your school or any hospital or any house of worship or any public institution, CUNY, any public institution you can think of. Our job is to protect New Yorkers who are the backbone of our economy. And immigrants do a lot for New York. They always have and they always will. So I don't want you to have to worry about anything but your homework and eating your veggies. Okay?
Thank you. We're going to take one question from the Zoom. Christine Gorman.
Thank you. Christine Gorman, Hell's Kitchen Democrats. You mentioned community boards. Do you support Manhattan's Community Board 4, which voted unanimously against the rezoning of the Western Rail Yards to build a casino?
Oh, no casinos. Christine, let me tell you, I never shy away from a fight. I'm not a big fan of casinos. I have been against the proposed casino in my district right by Citi Field. And have been very critical of the inability to provide real community benefits. I think above anything else, casino business models, device that, you know, would require many additional services that we obviously don't have now when we're trying to take care of all of these other problems. And so my priority, honestly, in terms of economic development, in terms of construction, would certainly be around low income, affordable housing units, but also modest equity homeownership opportunities.
Thank you. We're going to take a question from the floor.
Hi, Senator Ramos, Saha, President of the NYU Dems. What is your plan to address segregation in public schools? And specifically, what is your stance on the SHSAT?
For the question. So my son, my oldest son, who's in 8th grade a few months ago, took the SHSAT. His dream is to go to Brooklyn Tech. And really what I believe is that we need more specialized high schools. We need high schools to be much more inclusive of all learning abilities. I think there's a lot of value for the smart kids, yes, to have their space, but also to be able to mingle with everyone else in the same way that those who are struggling can benefit from having friends who are much better resourced or understand a subject matter a lot better. So I think that it is more about having more choices for our young people to really hone their skills and make a choice that hopefully is in line with what they want to do. So we already know we need to build more schools because we have a small class size law. But I think if we have more specialized high schools and we have more vocational high schools, we should be able to serve every single high school student with what their interest is.
I like to say, if you've already asked a question on the line, please go to the back of the line. Those who have not asked a question, please step forward. We have a question from the floor.
Hi, Senator. So my question for you is, young people have long been at the forefront for the movement of diversity, equity, and inclusion, aka DEI. What would you do to defend and expand that for all New Yorkers, especially groups under attack by the Trump administration, such as immigrants, women's rights, and LGBTQIA+ folks?
Thank you. I think as mayor, one of the things that I would be able to do is really have a platform to require DEI from the private sector and really I think it starts at City Hall in putting forth an administration or an environment that is conducive to having that level of diversity. And I think young people should have all sorts of economic opportunities at their fingertips. One of the platforms I've announced on this campaign is a youth jobs guarantee for young people aged 16 to 24, because I don't think SYEP should have the S in it. It shouldn't just be about the summer. What about winter youth employment? You know, and helping young people. I know you guys aren't thinking about pensions yet, but starting to contribute to your Social Security a little earlier, or having an opportunity to figure out what you like and what you don't like so that hopefully you can have a career that satisfies you is really, really important. But thank you for the question. Absolutely.
We're going to take another question from the floor.
Greetings. My name is Lila. I'm a member of CODA. I'm also the former Community Education Council president. My question to you is that 1 in 4 of our kids go to school hungry. About 1 in 7 live in transitional housing. Our district has done an amazing job, and I've been part of that, and making sure that we have fridges in our schools and we have pantries set up. However, a lot of our candidates don't speak on education and the fact that how important feeding and eating at these vital ages from pre-K to 4th grade help in our development. So my question to you is, how are you going to help our younger age public school students if you are elected as mayor? And I'm also a super fan of you.
Oh, thank you. Gracias. Muchas gracias. Well, let me tell you, I'm having this problem right now. So my boys are 11 and 13, and very often they come home telling me they haven't eaten all day. And it's heartbreaking, but they'll say, Mom, it didn't look appetizing. It didn't, I didn't want to eat that. You know, not even pizza on Fridays. So you know there's something going on. I want children to be able to access a nutritional meal. Obviously, having a full belly will mean that they can focus and learn. So I not only want to make sure that we're sourcing our food locally from our local farms to our cafeterias, but I think there is some room to be a little creative about how we're also supporting the restaurants that are near a school and figuring out a cheap program where, you know, maybe for $4, $5, there's a little lunch, a little voucher that allows for the child to support their local restaurant and eat food they know they like, and that you can trust they're going to eat and that they're going to be healthy and ready to pay attention in the classroom. That's really, really important. I think that's one of the biggest worries moms have. Thanks for the question.
We have time for one more question.
Hi, Rod Dubitsky, Grand Street Democrats. Can you give 2 or 3 ideas for addressing the crime rate in New York City?
Oh, thank you. Well, let me start by saying, the crime rates that I think a lot of people don't talk about and that are not going down. And that's largely violence against women. Domestic violence is on the rise. It's largely unreported. We have not made it easier for people who are victims of domestic violence and rape to come and feel comfortable making that report and know that there's actually going to be follow through. So making sure that we're working through those rape kits is actually really, really important so that perpetrators understand that there are going to be very serious consequences to their wrongdoing. That being said, I know a lot of New Yorkers, occasionally like me, can feel unsafe on the subway. I'm a New Yorker, in 10 seconds. I'm a New Yorker without a driver's license, so I take the subway everywhere or the bus. I'm actually a bigger fan of the bus. And I want to do bus rapid transit, but that's not the question. But I do want to be able to take people who are struggling with severe mental illness off the subway. I don't think there's anything progressive about leaving people to struggle when Andrew Cuomo closed down our psychiatric facilities over 10 years ago. Some of them are actually still in some working order. Sorry. I know, I tried. I was hoping I had picked up a little goodwill there and they would have let me go a little longer.
They're staring at me. So 30-second closing, Senator
Well,
Ramos.
thank you. Look, I am really hoping to earn your vote and your support in this race. I am someone who is not working for any special interest. I don't have rich parents. I am a working class New Yorker who's still trying to make it myself. I want my kids to be able to make it just like yours. And the city really does belong to us, not the financial industry, not the real estate industry. So this election is an opportunity to make sure that we are electing different leadership that you know is going to piss off Donald Trump, but also that won't be scared of him and that will actually put his feet to the fire and make sure that he's delivering for us. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Senator Ramos.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, I promise I'll do better with time. I'm sorry for front row. All right, so our next candidate is Senator Zelma Myrie. We're gonna have you come on up. I know you were waiting for the cue to come up. Let's give him a round of applause. It's been a long night and I'm so grateful for all of you staying here. All right, so I'm gonna go through some logistics for you, right? My name is Jasmine Sanchez. I'm the president of Three Bridges Democratic Club. Some of the logistics are that you will have a 5 minutes for opening statement. There's going to be 15 minutes of Q&A, and you'll have 30 seconds for closing. We have 165 people on Zoom, and we have close to 100 or so left in the room. So we wanted to give you the floor. You can start.
Good evening. All right, I know I'm the last candidate, and I know that the hour is late, but we want to keep the energy up, so good evening. All right, that's what I'm talking about. So thank you so much for having me. Thank you for your patience. To all of you who are still here, who are still engaged, thank you, thank you, thank you. And to everyone who has come, I got to be very honest with you about how I feel in this moment. I am tired. Tired. And not just physically tired, the hour is late, but I feel spiritually tired. Tired of the corruption, tired of the allegations, tired of the distractions, tired of leaders of the past asking for solutions to the future. I am tired. And I think most New Yorkers are tired as well. Look at what we've seen in just the past 2 days alone. Unprecedented action by the Department of Justice. A mayor more interested in saving his own skin than serving and protecting New Yorkers. You know, today we wrote a letter to the Southern District to say reject any motion for dismissal of these charges, not just because the mayor is compromised, we know that, but because the implications for every single New Yorker, every student, every teacher, every parent, every officer, every artist, entertainer, lawyer, everybody in this city, we now have no leadership. And instead of being led by someone who was duly elected, this city is being ran by Donald Trump.
Mhm.
So here's the truth. Even though we are tired, we cannot give up because this city has never given up. My parents came here close to 50 years ago, both of them from Costa Rica, for opportunity. That's why everybody comes. They worked in factories when they got here, sent me to public schools in central Brooklyn. Went to Brooklyn Tech for high school, Fordham for undergrad and grad, Cornell for law school. I worked at one of the best law firms in the world, the son of 2 immigrant parents. That is our New York City story. I ran for state senate to represent the very neighborhood I was born and raised in, and got to work as soon as we got to the legislature. Day one, we passed something called early voting. 38th state in the nation to do it. A couple of weeks after that, we passed the Reproductive Health Act, codified Roe v. Wade years before the Supreme Court struck it down. A couple of weeks after that, we passed the climate legislation that was the most forward-looking in the nation at the time. And we ended the session with the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act, the strongest tenant protections that the state has seen in half a century. I did all that in my first 6 months. We need this type of urgency in this moment. We need the attention to detail in this moment. And for people like my wife and I, also born and raised in central Brooklyn, we in fact went to the same elementary school. We want to put roots down in that same neighborhood. But owning a home feels out of reach. We get on the train, things feel different. We want affordable childcare. And instead of having a leader addressing all of those issues, we have someone that has been playing for a pardon this entire time. So I'm running for mayor because we deserve better. Enough already. This is the capital of opportunity. This is New York City. We can lead in this moment, and we must lead in this moment, facing what we're facing from this federal administration. Because of all of you, we took back the Senate majority in 2018 because Albany under Andrew Cuomo wasn't working for everyday New Yorkers. I would be honored to earn your support again so we can take back City Hall and finally lead for everyday New Yorkers again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we're going to take our first question from the floor.
Hi, Janine Kiley, DID. Why were you not able to fill out our candidate questionnaire? Oh, you just did? Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Coming in hot. Coming in hot.
Okay.
I love it. I love it.
Okay. Only got it 10 minutes ago. Okay. My question then is, how will you continue to build on literacy instruction for students who need it all day, every day, like what they're getting right now at South Bronx Literacy Academy and hopefully next year in Central Brooklyn?
Yeah, I'm the son of a public school teacher. My dad, after he left working in the factory, moved to the Bronx, taught at PS 112, taught special education for 22 years. And I'm a product of public schools as well. There's not much that this administration, I think, has done well, but one of the things that I think they have is the focus on reading and increasing literacy. And so that is something that I plan to be supportive of, to continue and to expand where appropriate.
Thank you. Another one from the floor.
Hi, Senator Myrie. I'm Sean Miller. I'm a member of Manhattan and Queens Young Democrats, former member of Brooklyn Young Dems. Young people are really concerned about affordability, right? We're in a housing crisis. There's inflation of tuition. CUNY, right, is unaffordable for thousands of students. What would your plan be to make New York City more affordable for young people?
This is really, really important to me because I like to consider myself still a young person. And as I think about my own future in the city and what I can afford, it has real implications who the leaders are in this moment. I have a plan, a mandate for 1 million homes, to build 700,000 units and to preserve 300,000 units. I think we need an all of the above approach to bring down the cost of housing, and we need to build for all types. We need to build for families. We need to build for young professionals. We got to give people opportunity in this city. CUNY used to be free. It used to be the gateway to success. And in many ways, it still is. But our professors, our administrators, and our students are struggling because we have not invested in the level that we need to. I'd like to change that as the next mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take another question from the floor.
William, Hell's Kitchen Democrats, Zellner, if you get elected to succeed Teddy Long for mayor, because that's what you could pass for, do you plan to rebuild the Franklin Avenue shuttle, thus turn it into the Franklin Avenue local? Do you plan to rebuild the downtown track above Brooklyn Botanic Garden Station?
Okay, I love this hyper local question. This is actually in my district, and I take the shuttle as it currently exists now. People don't know that it used to be a local line, and that bridge that is now decrepit used to be in much better shape. I take the train everywhere. I do not drive. I don't own a car. And so improving our subways is something that is very personal to me. It is the lifeblood of our city. It is why I supported congestion pricing. It is why I think it is important that we invest our capital money in the infrastructure that we need. I have fought for local projects, whether that's Nostrand Junction, whether that's more accessibility for our train stations in my district. I plan to do the same thing for the entire city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another question from the floor.
Hi, Zelnor. It's Barney. I'm with NYU Democrats. You stand out to me as a candidate, as one of the only candidates with a comprehensive housing plan. Can you please elaborate on the key components of this plan?
Yeah, so I started, and thank you for that, and thank you for the work that you're doing. Talking about young people, let's give it up for our college Dems. Much, much appreciated. So we have a plan. It is a 26-page plan, leisurely reading when you get the chance. And it has a couple of components. It includes some rezoning to upzone places that are already dense. It also talks about utilizing areas that have not been developed in a long time, like industrial areas that are sandwiched between residential areas that can become residential. We have commercial real estate that is suffering through a lot of vacancies right now that we can convert to residential. And I have a plan to improve our public housing. I used to represent Brownsville when I 4 years ago before redistricting. I've walked through those hallways. I've been in those apartments. We need a real plan to improve the conditions there, and that is part of what we're doing. But we also got to preserve. We got to preserve. I grew up in a rent-stabilized apartment. My mom still lives in a rent-stabilized apartment now. We have a great right to counsel program. It's not fully funded. It's not fully resourced. I'd like to do that and also expand it to homeowners who are facing deed theft and foreclosure. Thank you very much. Rebuild NYC.
Yes. We are going to take another question from the floor.
Hi, Mindy, I'm with VID and I'm also a veteran public school teacher. Do you support the continuation of mayoral control over our New York City public schools? If so, how would you improve accountability and transparency? But if not, what alternative governance structure do you propose?
So I'm running to be mayor. I support mayoral control. It is not a perfect system. There are some flaws. As I mentioned, my dad taught in this system for 22 years. I was under both systems as a public school student. I was under the former Board of Education, and I was under mayoral control when initiated by Mayor Bloomberg. I think there are positives and negatives to both of these things, but I support mayoral control because I think there needs to be a single point of accountability. This is one of the largest portions of our city budget. It is literally the future of this city. And if somebody is upset about the service delivery given to our students, they need to be able to come yell at me in my face and say, what are you doing about this? And not have a diffuse structure. I do think there are opportunities to include more parent involvement in decision making. Our PEPs, our CECs, I think need to be a lot more diverse. They need to include some students and some other voices, but I do support mayoral control. Thank you.
We're going to take a question from the Zoom room. So Miriam Fisher, you have a question?
Myself,
Miriam?
yes, I was trying to turn on the video, sorry. I heard I'm from Chelsea Reform Democratic Club. I heard your support for accessibility on the subway. Are you aware that there's a 7-year lawsuit on elevator maintenance? About 30 elevators break down daily and people are stranded. And another unnoticed area is bus stops.
You're at time, Miriam? You can ask the question. Are you aware of that issue?
Yes, so I'm aware of the issue, Miriam. I didn't know if you wanted to have a follow-up question, but
Yes.
this is something that I think has been a grave injustice in the city. My mom had both of her knees replaced a couple of years ago, and so navigating the subways has been nearly impossible for her. I think it's important that many New Yorkers go through the same thing, inaccessibility, and it's only gotten better because of litigation. And that to me cannot be our policy. We cannot resort to only having the courts step in to help us. We got to invest the capital funding. We are frankly out of compliance with federal law. So it's time for us to put our money where our mouth is.
Thank you.
My
We're going
other
to take
part
a
of-
question. Oh, I'm sorry, Miriam, one question. We're going to take a question from the floor.
Good evening. The Department of Buildings has been headed by people who don't have the qualifications for the last few years with very dramatic consequences. What would you do to fix that?
This is such an excellent question because I think it applies not just to DOB, but to who you appoint, period. Our commissioners, our deputy mayors, my senior advisors. These have to be people with subject matter expertise, people that have demonstrated an ability to lead and think outside of the box. What we've seen in this current administration is appointing political cronies, people who've only been loyal to you, and we've literally seen people walked out in handcuffs because of it. I want to appoint people who care about the issue, who have subject matter expertise. And as it relates to the DOB, I mean, we have seen, frankly, this is the subject of some corruption trials right now, the exchange of non-inspections, not keeping our buildings safe for untoward purposes. So I think it's really important that we staff up and do it in the right way in DOB. And even for HPD and our Department of City Planning, if we're going to have 1 million homes over the next 10 years, we got to have the personnel to process that and to ensure that people are upholding the law.
Thank you. Next question from the floor.
Hello, Sophie from Manhattan Young Democrats. I want to ask a question that impacts everyone, but especially young people. We have a mental health crisis. 1 in 7 teens experience mental health crisis in their teenage years. And as you know, Rikers is the biggest mental health facility in New York City right now, which is a huge problem. What are you going to do to address the mental health crisis in New York City?
Yeah, firstly, I want to say, and I try to do this as much as I can when I'm in public, that I myself am in therapy and consistently in therapy because we have to be able to talk about this and not have it be stigmatized. But outside of that context, for folks who are chronically mentally ill, the city knows who these individuals are. City agencies deal with them on a constant basis. There is no real coordination. They do not talk to each other. There's not a single person that's held accountable every single day to say, how can I get this person actual help? What we do is we send them to Rikers or we send them to the emergency room where they're not going to get help in either of those settings, and particularly in Rikers where they're probably going to get worse. And so we've proposed something in our public safety plan that would include clinicians that would help these individuals and get them into permanent and supportive housing. Right now, there's a backlog. People who have admitted that they need the help, they want the help. The city has identified them. We have vacancies for that permanent supportive housing, and they have not yet been matched. That is a leadership and management issue that I hope to rectify.
Thank you. We're going to take another question from the floor.
Hi, Ethan from CRDC. What's a housing policy proposal from your opponents that you think is wrong-headed?
So look, I think certainly at this stage of the campaign, I'm going to try to be as positive as possible. And I'm going to speak about the plans that I have for the city and how I look to solve this affordability crisis. I think everyone is coming from a genuine place in this race, but I think we have the best housing plan. I think we have the most robust housing plan, and that is why we put that vision forward.
Thank you. We are going to go to Carol Alt online, or Ott, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'm with the Chelsea Reform Democratic Club. Existing co-op and condo residents are struggling to meet the costs of compliance with Local Law 11 and the Climate Mobilization Act. What would you do to support co-ops and condos as they try and meet these financial challenges?
That is a great question, and not only as it applies to Local Law 11, we have a lot of things that we have done in good principle and intentions, like Local Law 97, which I fully support and I think we need to uphold. But co-op owners, co-op and condo owners need help in compliance. I think the city has unfortunately at times done the same thing with our small businesses. We've put out regulations that are well intended, but then we do not provide the support on the back end. My mom owned a jewelry shop on Flatbush Avenue that had to close down because she didn't know how to access capital. She didn't know how to work through the bureaucracy. I think we need to be a lot more proactive, and I would do the same thing in this instance, going out, educating, and providing the resources for folks to be in compliance.
Thank you. And we do have time for one question.
Hi, so nice to meet you. My name is Zach Brodkin. I'm with VID. My question is, anybody who tries to get a job knows how difficult the application process is because there's almost no transparency. One aspect of unemployment that is not being counted are the people that have given up looking for work because they are so distraught with the application process. What do you support the idea of a pathway to employment, and what does that look like for you? And what does that look like to you?
Yeah, so I want to make sure I understand the question correctly, that the hurdles to applying to jobs now, but just from an administrative standpoint, discourages people from engaging in the process altogether.
Right, because there's no transparency. So what I'm asking is, do you support the idea of a pathway to employment to make it easier and more transparent? And if you do, what does that look like?
So I do support that. I want to be honest with you that I don't know all of the ways to make that happen in this moment. So I would love to talk to you more to
Sure.
get some insight, and you can point me to the people I should talk to about it.
Sure.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we want to give you your 30-second closing.
Right. And I know I have to be on time because I didn't want to get called. I heard that first time. I was like, woo. Okay. All right. So look, this is the end of the night. All I will say is that our city has been down and distraught in the past, and every single time we have come back, and we have come back stronger. We can only do that if we pick a new mayor, new leadership, a different direction. I hope to be that mayor, and I hope to earn your support. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Senator Myrie. I wanted to let you all know, thank you all for being here, for continuing to stay all the way to the end. So give yourselves a round of applause.
right?